A wagon rumbles down a quiet valley road, and inside it a letter spills out a bombshell military city meant for a guy named Darrett. Darrett grips the folded note tight in his hands, lost in thoughts of the city that's waiting for him ahead. He glances down at the paper. A quiet smile flashes across his face, and he admits the whole thing hits him like a time machine. The town's crammed with houses, and a giant castle looms at the back, but things didn't start this way. Not until the story begins. A few weeks back in the rural city of Layton, things for him were getting downright brutal. In the Blacksmith Guild, right inside, someone got hit with the shock of their life by brand new news, and you could practically hear the panic in their breath. Darrett just freezes in pure shock, staring like, "You're really exiling me," while the people in power casually turn around and walk on. The blacksmith looks completely wrecked, and all he can think is, why is this happening to me? The guild leader roars that Darrett brings zero value to the group, so they have to cut him loose for the guild's sake. But Darrett demands they explain it better, and the guy just shrugs, saying it's basically nothing but a waste of money. Guildmaster Sinyon cuts in mid-sentence, roars that he's swamped with real work, and snaps that he's got no time for this, so the moment is ruined. It makes it crystal clear. Darrett is officially thrown out of the guild right now. Sinyon keeps yelling at him to hurry up and get out, like he's got better things to do, so Darrett awkwardly waves back and promises he'll leave right away As the blacksmith storms off, completely baffled, the guildmaster's face twists into a nasty smirk. Sinyon glares as he disappears, face twisted in disgust, convinced there's zero chance she'll ever let that guy come back. The door slams shut with a thunderous bang, and Darrett is trapped in the silence alone after he's been on the move for a while. The wagon driver finally tells Derek they've reached the destination, and Derek immediately hands a little kid the toy he's been working on, swearing it's good as new. The kid's absolutely buzzing. He throws his head back and screams that the horse toy actually moves now, As the wagon lurches forward, the little guy screams a huge thank you back to the man who just saved the day. Darrett stares at his battered hand and realizes he poured 30 brutal years into one thing, devoting his life to the forge. Derek waves goodbye, already stunned by how much he's changed, because right then it hits him. He's officially an old guy now, As he barrels toward the royal capital of the Kingdom of Grossa, the whole area is massive, packed wall to wall with people, and shops are stacked everywhere you look. He storms through the jam-packed market streets, soaking up every shout, every echo, and every burst of city energy until it hits him. He's never even left his hometown before, and suddenly getting kicked out doesn't feel like a disaster. It feels like a lucky break as soon as he spots a food stall and fires off a question to the lady running the place for a surefire recommendation. She points him to the Borkow loin, and he goes for it. So he tells her that sounds perfect, slips a few coins into her hand, and she thanks him for stopping by then. And he takes one bite, completely stunned at just how insanely good the food tastes. The vendor tells him, "I haven't seen you around," then leans in and asks where he's from, so he grins and says he just rolled in from Layton. He claims he used to be part of the Blacksmith Guild there, then awkwardly blurts out that they banished him. A booming voice slices through the market chaos as someone screams for attention, then demands loud and clear how much everyone thinks that particular falchion costs, making an enraged adventurer wields her shattered blade like a trophy, screaming that it couldn't even chew through a simple treat branch before it snapped clean in half. The dude she's yelling at just stares her down, looking annoyed as he tells her she's probably messing up her gear the wrong way. The crowd starts whispering, "Wait, what's happening?" And then it hits. They're staring at a traveling weapon merchant, the kind you only see every once in a while. The food vendor leans in and tells Darrett that the guy usually has a decent selection, but word on the street says his reputation is straight up garbage. Darrett glares over with a sour face, muttering that shady guys like those are everywhere. He devours his meal, then tells the lady he's going to check it out. She warns him to stay careful as he heads out. Darrett barges through the crowd while the adventurer keeps hollering, and she reminds the merchant that if he promised steel or a sword, it's going to cut down those plant monsters. The merchant huffs like she just slapped him, then shoots back, "Are you really saying I sell fake weapons?" While he goes dead serious, gives her the creepiest stare, and dares her to show him real proof. The adventurer's still seething, but her kid yanks her back and begs her to let it go, yet she refuses to because she isn't dumb, isn't listening. He raises that broken blade, and you can feel the weird bumpy inside the metal where it snapped then. When Derek shoves up through the crowd, he echoes the merchant's words about it being steel ore, then demands, straight to the point, if that's true. So he steps up, grabs the guy's attention, and snaps, "Hold on, lying won't help you one bit." The merchant and the adventurer just lock eyes with him, stunned out of their minds that this random stranger is. Derek steps in, flashing that he's a blacksmith too. Then he jabs a finger straight at the smashed falchion and cuts him off mid-sentence, like he's about to reveal everything. He finally drops the truth-telling, had a guy he didn't use steel ore at all, and that he forged the sword with cassiterite instead. The merchant breaks into a cold sweat and screams, insisting he never touched anything like that, then points at Derek and demands he stop lying because Derek grabs the shattered bit from the lady and goes, "I've got everything I need right here." While as he flashes that pitted pattern in the metal, it screams one thing: this merchant cut corners and used cheap cassiterite. Derek jabs at the blade and points out the wavy ripples because if this were real steel, those lines would be dead straight, no bends, no wavering. The crowd erupts into buzzing noise as everyone realizes their own blacksmiths said the exact same thing. Then one guy yells to run and find the soldiers. The merchant tries to wave him off, but Derek slides right in, leans closer, and asks if the guy has ever even thought about the people out in the field who truly have to use these tools. He locks eyes with the guy, cold as ice, and straight up tells him he's pathetic, especially for a fellow blacksmith. Derek keeps the heat on, telling the guy to step up, then pushes him to finally own his work and start doing it the right way. The merchant starts shaking and blurts, "Shut up, Derek." You can tell he's cracking because he can't stand some old man laying into him right in front of everyone. He keeps cursing under his breath about how they talk down to him. Then suddenly he shoots his hand out and clamps his grip on the sword's hilt. Suddenly the guy snaps, then charges straight ahead, blade howling as he swings and yells at Derek to stop lecturing him. Everything spirals into chaos as Derek finally realizes just how ugly this is getting. He yells for everyone to back up right now before someone gets seriously hurt. Right as the merchant is about to land the blow, a stranger screams, "Stop!" and dives in to intercept the attack mid-motion. The merchant charges in, swinging his sword. Then a girl abruptly steps right in and stops him cold. She sits there stone calm, even with that blade sitting inches from her. Before he can even blink, she snaps him to the ground with a single hand. Derek tore away from the scene, totally stunned that everything had happened so fast. The woman with the braids and everyone around her just stand there, frozen, staring in awe while the girl stares down at the guy on the floor with a razor-sharp, no-nonsense glare. She orders the soldiers to haul him away, and they salute her on the spot as the whole crowd erupts in cheers the moment the merchant finally gets caught. Turns out she's the commander of the Grossa army, and Derek can't stop himself. He's blown away as he shoots her a grateful look for the help, but she shrugs it off, says it was all just part of the job. The girl halts mid-step and stares harder, because his face hits her like a memory she can't quite reach. She stares on and on as she blurts out, "Are you really who I think you are?" And Derek just freezes there, painfully awkward, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Panic starts hammering in his chest when he realizes that, as a broke nobody, talking to a high-ranking official could look seriously bad. He panics that the cops will haul him in for creeping on her, but then she tilts her head and asks, "Are you the teacher I used to know?" The commander flashes a huge grin, introduces herself as Milital, and leans in asking if he remembers her from back then. She pulls up a memory from 10 years back when he was the one who crafted a toy sword for her to play with. Derek's eyes blow wide when it finally clicks in his head. He can't believe the way she's blossomed since she was a kid, because seeing her old master again, she's just as joyful as ever. Milital thinks he showed up in the city because of her letter, but her own soldiers are standing there like, "Who is this guy?" completely baffled. She tells her squad that this is the guy who basically raised her while she was growing up. Milital decides to stay put and chat for a while. She orders her squad to move out without her, and the soldiers snap to attention, saluting like they fully understand. Derek's still reeling. Then she blurts, "Wait, are you really telling me you're a Legion commander in the Grossa army?" And he nods, so she smiles and says it's all because of him. He calls it a huge promotion for someone her age, but she just shakes her head and snaps, "No, it's not like that." She stares at her weapon, then declares that every win, every hard-earned moment, was forged by this one sword. The guys in the back are totally baffled. What does a sword even have to do with this? But Derek leans in and tells her to draw it so he can finally see. As she yanks the blade free from its sheath, Derek's face hardens, dead serious, like he's bracing for impact. He locks eyes on the pitch-black blade, and it hits him. This is the Shinma, a rank S divine magic sword packed with holy power. He starts losing it since a rank S weapon is basically a national treasure. Then Melitl drops the bomb. He's the one who made it. Derek's completely checked out, no memory at all, like he's never even forged a sword that looks anything like this. Derek sulks hard, convinced he just smeared his fingerprints all over a national treasure. But Melitl shoots him a look and tells him to start wording it differently. She tells him the toy sword he made her didn't stay small. It actually grew into the weapon she carries right now. Derek's jaw hits the floor when the news lands, and he fully loses it because the whole idea sounds straight up impossible. He roars that he's never seen a weapon pull off something like that in his life, and Melitl admits she's never heard of it either. But as they kept spending time together, the blade started shifting shape slowly at first until it finally transformed into the sword it is today. She locks eyes with him and blurts out that maybe his weapons aren't just tools. They've got some special power that lets them evolve on their own. It dares to stare straight at the hilt, and then it all clicks. This legendary S-rank blade is nothing more than that same ancient toy from 10 years ago. She admits it was only a kid's toy at first, so Derek just stands there, stunned, like his brain can't even process what he's hearing. It looked like the weapon shifted because she cared about it more and more, and her feelings kept swelling over time. Derek's still totally lost, so Melitl leans in and tells him she's got a theory for why his weapons are so wildly different. Melitl glances back at that moment when Enlighten brought it up, and she admits it. Derek's tools never got the love they deserved. She can't help but wonder if anyone back then ever truly cared enough to treat what he built with respect, considering the whole city was packed with rich adventurers who could just grab brand new gear anytime they felt like it. She swears Lighten's got a twisted culture where people toss stuff out like it's trash. And Derek drops his gaze straight up, admitting that, as a blacksmith, that mindset was always something he could never wrap his head around. He realizes he's been slinging things sideways before the owners can even form a real bond with their gear. Melitl nods like, yep, that's exactly it. And the moment he starts to think about it, she locks eyes with him, calls him teacher, and drops the bomb she's got one massive favor she needs him to grant. She brings up the exact point he slammed in his letter, and it totally knocks the wind out of him. Derek blurts out, so what are you getting at? And he can't shake the thought that this favor is tied to her time with the Grosso army. But he has no idea she leans in with a fire in her eyes, and her intensity is about to hit like a storm as she tackles the close. She suddenly lunges at him, grips him tight, and pleads for him to be her one and only personal blacksmith. Derek just stood there, mind racing in total disbelief as that offer hit him like a punch. Derek panics on the spot and slams the idea down, insisting he'd never do it, saying it's way too much responsibility for just one guy. But Melitl won't take no for an answer. She drops her head and begs, please help us. And he blurts out that Derek is literally the only one they can even ask for a favor like this, while Derek freezes, shaking his head, trying to wrap his mind around why it has to be him. And Melitl awkwardly blurts out that they're trapped in this mess. Derek repeats it right back, and you can hear the stress hitting him hard, but then the brave girl strides in, crashes their moment, and blurts a quick apology for butting into their conversation. Just to thank Derek for saving her earlier, Derek looks genuinely stunned, while Melitl lingers in the back, seething at the interruption. Even that shady merchant steps in, salutes Melitl, and blurts out thanks for everything she's done as commander. Melitl swallows her nerves and keeps things professional. She tells them it's been ages since the last ceremony and admits she's only relieved nobody got hurt. But then she suddenly yanks Derek's arm and blurts that she's in a massive hurry before Derek can even react. Right before she starts dragging him away, he's still screaming at the top of his lungs, demanding to know where they're even heading. The braided adventurer bursts out, yelling that she wants to reward Derek for what he did earlier. Then she commands them to head to the inn in the East District. Derek's practically grinning at the offer free lodging would help a ton, but before he can say, I'll go, Melitl snaps at him to shut up, hauling him along so hard it's like she's daring him to bite his own tongue. and she keeps dragging him through the city like he's nothing but dead weight, making Derek groan and stumble until they vanish into the distance. Meanwhile, in the heart of the City of Light, at the Blacksmith Guild, everything's about to kick off. Guild leader Sinyan is locked in, gaping at his own reflection in the vanity mirror and boasting non-stop about how insanely good he looked. Book strikes a pose and declares himself beautiful as he stares at his reflection, rocking a massive smug grin. He finally strides out to the main hall to greet his staff, cracks that the air feels shockingly fresher now that Darrett's finally gone, and every employee greets him right back, ready for his morning meeting, because they can't wait to kick things off by chanting the guild's philosophy. But the moment he starts, a shout bursts in from the entrance, snapping his attention as he whips around to hunt down who just interrupted him. Sinyan snaps, "Who the hell are these guys?" as a squad of top-ranked soldiers marches straight into the building. Back at the guild, this flashy kid storms in and asks Zenian if Lord Duray is here. Like the moment the words hit, something big might be coming. Sinyan's face contorts with raw rage because he can't stand anyone acting like Darret matters more than he does. Later, Nana Hikari finds Darret and without any respect, calls him an old man right to his face. Darret clocks that 5 days have finally gone by, and Nana Hikari just smirks, promising he'll give him credit for showing up instead of bolting. A crowd quickly swarms in, and everyone around them huddles and whispers, shaking with nerves because the monster scene is about to explode. Darret's getting visibly stressed. Sweat starts pouring down his face while Militol stands right beside him, staring with icy seriousness. At last, the official blacksmithing duel is about to ignite, and the whole crowd is buzzing with pure hype. An announcer blasts through the air, shouting to the whole crowd that the showdown between Lord Nana Hikari and Lord Darret is about to explode right now. Nana, Hikari, and his maid start striding toward the heart of the arena, and the crowd stares as they move. The signal blares blacksmithing contest. Start, and Darret and Militol are stuck on the sidelines as the tension rockets to its peak. Derek and Militol huddle side by side as things finally hit, and Derek's stress is practically screaming through the air. The whole crowd erupts into panic the second the big guy crashes in because it's the legendary destroyer, and everybody knows it. Every single person is locked on the sword the kid is gripping in, is blasting out this wild, unexplainable energy that leaves everyone totally stunned. Militial screams that they're playing dirty, and Darret can't even fire back because he knows she's dead right. Nana Hikari just smirks from the side and tells him that flashy sword is just for show, because it won't actually do a thing. The rules are nailed down tight. Break your sword or step out and it's game over. And that only cranks up Militol's irritation even more. Detrua stares his opponent down, breaks into a sneer, and can't stop laughing. He seriously can't believe he's been ordered to fight a little girl. She doesn't say a single word. She clamps down on the sword like it's her lifeline, while that strange energy keeps swelling higher and higher. The official strides right into the center of the ring, throws up his hand, and roars for everyone to look his way. He throws the go signal, and Detrawa instantly barrels in to smash the kid before she even gets a chance to move. Detrawa lets out a fierce grunt and launches his first move, throwing his whole weight into a brutal swing. That massive blade slices through the air, and Comfy somehow hops back at the last second just to keep it from flattening him. She braces hard, and the sheer force of the attack almost knocks her clean off her feet. In the crowd, they start snapping off, screaming that the power is unreal, so strong they swear they can feel the wind blasting off the swing. Detroit keeps the pressure cranked up, barking for her to hold steady as he rips another massive horizontal slash. But he's getting more and more pissed off because he still hasn't landed a hit. So he taunts her and barks, "So what can you do besides run away?" He blasts out a thunderous shout and swings again, sending Comfy tumbling through the air just to keep from getting torn apart. She hits the ground with a brutal grunt near the boundary, and up close she looks tiny beside that giant looming over her. The crowd erupts and screams as Detrawa bursts into laughter. He's got her boxed in, and he tells her she's got nowhere left to run. Everyone watching is shaking with fear, and one guy blurts out that he's never ever going to watch that kid get turned into a bloody mess. Detroit towers over her, dangling an easy out if she quits right now, but Comfy refuses to budge, swearing she's not surrendering for a second. His words turn icy as he tells her she brought this on herself, and his fury boils over as he glares at her, demanding she not regret what's coming next, while his hand clamps down on his sword. Comfy dug in and held her ground, nerves buzzing in her chest, but she didn't blink. Her gaze stayed locked on him. In the stands, Melito's mind drifts to the commander who trained them, while Derek explodes into cheers at the top of his lungs for her and the sword he made. Detrua throws it all into one brutal overhead slam, screaming for her blade to finally shatter, but Comfy screams back, and as her sword starts sparking with wild electrical power, she refuses to ever fall. Suddenly, a monstrous crack of lightning blasts out from their clash, and the whole arena erupts in blinding white light. The power surges so hard that razor-bright bolts of energy blast straight up into the sky, and as everyone watching Derek Militol, plus even Nana Hikari, locks into stunned silence, the insane power blasting out of that kid leaves them all totally speechless. The cracked blade slams into the stone floor, and somehow it stays upright. The crowd up in the stands can't even find words for what they just witnessed. They just stand there, soaked in sweat, stunned, speechless. He just stood there, as silent as can be, while someone asked how the destroyer's sword got cut without a single sound, and right beside him, another guy was still in shock at how brutally sharp that blade looked. As Derek watches their reaction, a wave of awkwardness hits him. He starts to worry he may have gone too far with the changes he made. But the announcer blasts, "Comfrey is the winner," and the whole crowd erupts as the kid rockets across the arena, leaving. To tell Derek he actually pulled it off, he just watches with a calm smile. Then the commander explodes with a massive shout-out to Comfrey for the win, and as the whole place erupts in celebration, Detroit staggers out of the fight, looking like he's been drained dry fully out of it, and Nana Hikari just stands there, dead-eyed and frozen, still trying to make sense of the fact that his champion got absolutely demolished by a little girl. Derek strides up to him and fires off a reminder. "Hey, you promised, so the noble better start treating his blacksmith job like it matters. Starting right now." Lord Nana Hikari snaps, screaming at Derek to shut up and stop pretending they're friends. But Derek just stands there grinning like none of it even matters. The noble barrels on, yelling that he's quit his military blacksmith gig, and he threatens to sue every last person in that room. His maid stays right behind him, shooting a look that screams, "I'm done." Without a word, she coils up and smashes him with a brutal slap. His head whips around like he can't even find the ground. Comfy, Derek, and Militol just froze in place, mouths wide open, stunned beyond words by what they'd witnessed. As the maid bows politely, she begs for their forgiveness over her master's rudeness, then promises she'll tear into him later. The whole group goes dead quiet as she guides that dizzy noble and his fighter out of the arena, and then leaving. Nana Hikari tore into a screaming fit from inside the building, swearing he'd never, ever forgive that piece of shit Derek. He scrambles to regain control, then tells Detrua they're hitting tonight an all-out sneak attack to get revenge. But the destroyer just stares him down with dead, empty eyes and announces he's retiring, and he can't swallow the fact he got beaten by some little girl. Derek trudged down the endless hallway by himself, replaying every bad moment as he swore he was finally done with all the drama. Then he muttered a goodbye to it all. But back in the arena, Nana Hikari is straight up losing it, screaming at full volume that Derek is nothing but a useless piece of trash. He whips his rage toward his own maid, jabs a finger at her, and roars that he's finished with her violence yet. She screams about how dare she lay hands on her own master. Then she shoots him a chilling goodbye and storms straight for the door. She stares at him like she's gone numb, then straight up takes full blame for hitting him and quits right there on the spot. Nana Hikari just scoffs at that, arms crossed, then basically dares her to go on and leave if she wants. As she turns to leave, she tosses out that he's been using S-rank materials without permission, and even teases him with a lady nickname. As she walks off, she hammers it home even more, reminding everyone that he ran the whole brute ship like a destroyer, living right inside the family mansion. Leaving Nana Hikari utterly stunned in place, she finally blurts out that she's already told her parents everything he's done. He snaps back and launches after her, yelling that she's a traitor, then demanding she stop calling him names until she turns and walks out on him for good. Out of nowhere, a voice roars through the room and screams Nana Hikari's name so hard the walls feel like they're trembling, and Nana Hikari's eyes shot wide as dread hit. He realized he was in deep trouble, face totally panicked as he spots his parents awaiting there, shouts for his dad and mom. Then they both radiate this bone-chilling aura, and right as he starts, his dad flips screaming that he's unbelievable, calling him stupid for using stuff meant for another country without even asking first. His mother steps in, every bit as furious, and blasts out whether he's really trying to torch their family's reputation once and for all. Nana Hikari's dad snaps, demanding to know how many times he's supposed to yank these stunts, and before Nana can even explain, he shuts him down with a blunt, "I'm done." Right then and there, his father slams the bombshell he's officially exiled, and Nana Hikari just freezes in stunned disbelief. But his dad isn't done. He snaps his fingers at the guards, yelling for them to haul Nana Hikari away to the forest of Taman right now. Nana Hikari snaps as the guards grab him, thrashing and begging them to stop, promising he'll do anything just so he can get to that forest. He screams for his father and mother one last time, then they just turn around and walk off, leaving him to whatever fate comes next. It's way past midnight in the Taman forest, pretty, sure, but downright chilling, where Nana Hikari is completely losing it right now. He's hearing these terrifying sounds in the dark, and then he snaps, screaming as he starts flinging his arms like a maniac, screaming at the top of his lungs for anything out there to run. He's shaking with pure terror, scared out of his mind that he truly got exiled to a monster-infested hellscape. He looks shattered, lost in the thoughts that keep tearing at him, like he's one breath away from breaking. How dare it? It's actually the creator of that Shinma weapon, and it's chewing him up from the inside. While he finally admits the truth, he was just jealous of the other guy's talent. Dropping to his knees, he's hit with pure regret, like, why did he ever bring up that blacksmithing contest at all? If only he could go back. He knows he should have been honest from the start, but while he's stuck out there rotting in the woods, the city is somehow pulling ahead, and that's where things get wild. After the huge match, everyone crowds outside, and Militul steps forward to address the kid straight up, telling Confi that during the in this blacksmithing showdown, he swung with total pro-level skill and made the Grosso army proud as a roaring crowd watched. Confi bows and thanks the commander, then grabs the moment she tells both of them that this victory is theirs together. Derek, though, just smirks and acts unbothered, insisting he only forged the sword. Derek stays humble, straight up telling everyone that the real MVP, the one who put in the most work, was Confi. Confi freezes when someone shouts her name like that. She's blushing nonstop, like her heart's about to explode. While she blurts out a desperate excuse and launches into a sprint, all she can think about is one thing. They finally reach that sweet victory meet, and the other soldiers swarm in to shout their congratulations. Everyone's pumped to the max because, and with those military mentions, they basically just tripped over something huge today. Derek only smiles, all confident, saying he can't wait to see what her future holds. And then the pow. For a split second, the two of them just stood there watching the soldiers celebrate side by side like nothing could shake them. The guys are all posted up, passing snacks around like a victory parade, making sure Confi gets her share. No questions asked. But then Militul storms up front, goes dead serious, and roars, "Listen up," because she's about to unleash a huge wave. She storms onto the stage and shouts to the crowd that, starting today, Lord Derek is officially a squim. He's officially naming the Grosser Army's new exclusive blacksmith, and the whole squad explodes with cheers for the old man because he just saved their gear. Derek just stands there with a polite smile, but inside he's seething because every time the soldiers call him an old man, it drives him up the wall. The story snaps over to the Glossa Kingdom's colossal royal palace, an endless white fortress with towers that stab up into the cloud. Inside the palace walls, Senji trudges alone through a silent stone hallway, torches hissing in the dark. His footsteps are the only sound, until he stops dead when a voice roars down the corridor, screaming for someone to bring the thing out right now. Turns out Sinyan's the one behind all that chaos. He's rattling the bars and yelling that they can't do this to him and that they'll never get away with it. He keeps calling the guards garbage for refusing to negotiate, and that sparks one guard's curiosity about what he's really after, while the other guard snaps at him to shut up. Senji finally stumbles into the cell, rubs his head, and lets out a bone-weary sigh while the screaming pounds in his ears. The guards snap into a salute and shout his name, Lord Senji, right away, and he just flashes them a nod like, "Good work," as he strides straight up to the lock. He shoots his hand toward the door, and a bright, glowing magic seal snaps into existence right in front of the bars. The lock snaps open, and Senji barks at Sinyan to come out while the disgraced guild leader just freezes, staring at the kid like his mind can't even process what he's seeing. The work never quits. Look, there's already a gigantic line of soldiers snaking out the door and curling around the corner. One kid is absolutely buzzing, thanking D-Rate because that sword finally feels light in his hands after the repairs. Suddenly, they're all swarming him. One kid's yelling that he needs his sword fixed, and another's begging him to adjust his shoulder guard, and D-Rate looked totally wiped out, then snapped that everyone should hang tight. For a moment, he needs to work through them in order. Turns out he's officially the exclusive blacksmith for the Grosso army now. He just sits there, scratching his head, staring down that massive crowd of people just waiting for him to snap back into gear at the forge. Down the hall, a bunch of kids are frozen in front of a display case, staring at the sword inside like it's magic, so cool, so beautiful. They can't look away. One kid swears he'll be a Kamina user someday, and his friend shoots back, "Yeah, I'll get there first." And it all sets off a whole rivalry that Comfy steps forward with that stubborn, determined stare, and she makes it crystal clear she's not about to lose to them either. With that massive grin on her face, she vows she'll train even harder until she's strong enough to be a real, worthy wielder of Kamina. As they're still chatting, one of the kids spots a plaque on the wall and blurts out, "What's that S-rank achievement all about?" The kids hovering nearby are whispering nonstop, claiming D-Rate has to be as strong as the commander, or else strong enough to take down one of the four heavenly kings. D-Rate nearly drops his tools when that news hits. He can't even process it, because Melittle actually took down a demon. One of the kids tells him the Legion commander is totally amazing, and D-Rate can't help but think about the huge name she's carved out for herself. He feels oddly great for once, staring at his hammer like, yes, this is what it's all about. Because seeing the weapons he forged get used for real hits his chest like pure pride. The kids won't stop praising him, calling him incredible for forging a sword like Kamina, and even one boy blurts out that he wants to be a cool old guy just like him. D-Rate's face twitches when he hears them still calling him an old guy, but he refuses to dwell on it. He starts packing everything up and tells the kid crew he's officially shutting the place down for the day. So he yells to the massive crowd of soldiers, "Come back tomorrow." And the whole place surges, and finally everyone starts heading out. Melittle bursts in right on cue, grinning from ear to ear, and tells her master, "You did a great job today," praising him for how nonstop things have been. D-Rate swears it's even louder here than Enlighten, and it hits him like pure fulfillment, while Militol just giggles, grinning because everything's finally falling into place. Melittle glares out over the grounds and tells D-Rate that the soldiers have been completely transformed because of him. And she admits everyone's dying to try the Kamina gear. So lately they've been training like total strangers, totally different people from before. D-Rate grins, claiming it's the highest honor any blacksmith could ever dream of. Then Militol's voice flips, and she drops the catch. She bows her head and apologizes for the queen's decree, and D-Rate just stands there, totally thrown off until he finally clicks, "Yeah, the whole point was keeping my wild high-end crafting and repairs right at a steady, moderate level." And he swears that's exactly what he's doing. D-Rate tells her not to stress, insisting he's fine with it, because honestly, if everyone had weapons that powerful, the entire military would probably crumble. Milittle breaks into a massive, relieved grin, like she can finally breathe because he's taking the news so well right up until. Then she drops the bomb that she's got something way bigger to discuss today, and D-Rate's left scrambling, begging, "Wait, what's happening?" She tells him the queen is calling him up in person, so he has to rush to the palace right now. Leaves D-Rate frozen in place, dripping sweat as his brain scrambles to make sense of what's happening. D-Rate's head is spinning as he blurts out, "You mean right now, this second?" And Militol just gives him a quick nod. He snaps completely, shouting at the top of his lungs, demanding to know why something like this is happening to him at all. Milittle tries to cool him off, telling him the summons isn't punishment. It's a reward for all the insane hard work he's been grinding for the past few weeks. And she makes it crystal clear, supercharging the whole army's morale and stopping the national forces from slipping is a massive deal. So the higher-ups absolutely notice. D-Rate just freezes on the spot like a statue, terrified at the thought of a regular guy like him meeting the queen while Militol hangs in the balance, wondering if he's still with her. His eyes start spinning with panic as he blurts out what kind of person Queen Serenade even is praying for good news. But Militol pauses for a beat, thinking it over, then explains it to him in the simplest way she can. This queen doesn't have an ounce of patience if you look incompetent or useless in her eyes. She shuts you down instantly. She lounges on her throne, eyes so cold they could snap winter into existence. In the main hall, two guys are huddled on their knees, shaking like they're about to break, while the queen snarls, demanding to know right now who shattered the legendary sword. The legendary sword isn't legendary at all. Right now, it's shattered into pieces, just rotting in its flashy display case. Sinon just can't stop gaping at the queen like a total creep, as the queen straight up admits she fell for his slick talk, and she drives herself crazy, blaming her own blindness for missing how truly useless he is, then paces like a storm, fuming, furious, and ready to explode because she lets it slide way too long, then snaps her focus onto Senji, telling him point blank that he's completely incompetent this time, and Senji just swallows the hit, shuts his eyes, and tells her he's ready for every single consequence she's about to throw at him. The queen snaps, screaming she hates losers, then whips into him without mercy. Senji erupts in a massive yell. As the blows keep raining down, he doesn't beg for mercy. He snaps at her to hit harder, and leaves Sinun frozen, staring like she can't believe what she's seeing. Senji slams face first onto the floor, twitching like crazy, and somehow he's got this weird, blissed-out smile plastered on his face. But the queen's not done. She steps over his sign, whip crackling in her grip, and points him out like, "You're next." She rips into him, calling him a total moron, and yells that she's never heard of a guildmaster stupid enough to wreck a national treasure. Then Sinon flips out and starts screaming while she tears into him. The queen keeps whipping Sinon and screaming that he's been useless, while Sinon curls on the floor sobbing, begging her to stop, and meanwhile Senji just sprawls there, looking bizarrely thrilled. But the queen won't let it end. She slams down the news that Sinon is officially fired as guildmaster. Sinon just freezes, staring at her in total shock, barely managing to breathe. His scream for an explanation blasts out through the castle windows and soars straight into the sky. For a brief second, the chaos outside the palace walls finally dies down, right as the next part is about to kick in. Derek looked like he was 1 second from snapping as Mulittle hustled him through the halls. Then she clocked the room ahead, declared they'd finally made it, but the sentence cut off right there. But right there, face to face with those gigantic doors, Mulittle freezes and asks himself if he's truly ready to step inside. Derek's sweating buckets, basically admitting he'll need another whole year just to get his head straight before this meeting. His heart is hammering so hard he can practically hear it, and Mulittle just stares at him like, "Tell me you're joking about waiting that long." She tells him, "You're going to be just fine," as the guards yank for the door handles, and the words hit him again. As the massive doors begin to swing wide, it turns out the queen's surprisingly kind to anyone who actually proves they're good at their job. From her throne, the queen glares down at them and orders, "Stand up, look me in the eyes." So they both shout their respect real quick. Then Mulittle turns to the queen and declares that Derek is here. Derek is sweating buckets, stammering out his own name like it might slip away, and he's trying to stay together while the queen flashes him a tiny smile. She tells him those weapons he's been forging are straight up incredible. She grabs a handout and declares loud and clear that she's granting him full recognition. "Straight up, I told him he's the best blacksmith in the whole country." Derek pressed a hand to his chest, bowed his head, and told her he was beyond honored to hear those words. He just stands there for a second, and pure relief washes over his face. But then the queen steps in and sincerely apologizes for everything the Seven Stars Guild put him through, admitting she's been kicking herself for not spotting his talent sooner. She keeps insisting her eyes were clouded, and Derek finally jumps in to tell her she shouldn't talk about herself like that. Derek tries to play it cool, nervously blurting out that the queen's eyes are as clear as pure jewels, while Mulittle stands there watching him fumble and squirm as if it's the funniest thing in the world. The queen lets out a sharp little laugh at his weak compliment, then tells him straight, sure, he can forge like a master, but when it comes to talking to women, he's absolutely hopeless. Derek just freezes there, dragging out a tired, awkward grin and forcing out a laugh because he knows she's 100 right. So the queen cuts right to it. She says the reason she dragged him in is dead. Simple as a guard slides into position beside a long table. She tells them they have to talk right now about the damage done to the national treasure, the Amatsurugi. Derek's totally lost. He just blurts her name over and over, like he's got no clue what she's talking about. So the guard yanks the sheet off the table, and the queen snaps that there's zero chance he forgot her. She confirms the blade in the case is the Amatsurugi, and Milital begs for a second so they can huddle in close and study it like it might bite. Derek locks eyes with his own reflection in the glass, jaw dropping as he realizes he's never ever laid eyes on a sword this stunning in his whole life. Then the queen drops the bombshell. This wasn't just drama, it was a full-blown scandal because one noble got so obsessed with the sword that it actually evolved right under everyone's noses. The queen lays it all out back when the old owner touched that sword. The power snapped their mind clean in two, so that's why they raced to get it into the kingdom's hands right away before it could ruin anyone else. Derek locks onto the S-rank blade, stunned that it's evolved again. Then he winces at the fact that it somehow still makes him feel like a rookie, especially since he can't even remember forging it. Sweat pops on his forehead as the memory hits everyone. Knows the queen has zero patience for anyone who doesn't know what they're doing. He fumbles for the perfect words, but his thoughts keep sprinting in circles. Finally, he cracks and admits he's truly sorry. But the wild part is, he has zero memory of ever doing anything like this before. She doesn't even get mad, she's downright amazed, yelling that he forged a legendary blade, and somehow he still doesn't grasp what a massive deal that is. She erupted into laughter and told him he was seriously fascinating. A massive wave of relief hits Derek. He's not in trouble, though. He's still sitting there thinking, yeah, I still don't know any sword-crazy nobles. The queen snaps back to work and tells him she dragged him there for one reason: she needs him to fix the Amatsurugi. Derek stared at her, utterly stunned, and just kept blurting repair over and over like he couldn't process what he was hearing. Derek stared at the snapped blade in his hands, realizing that even after everything the queen promised, this sword was still nothing but broken metal. And Queen's serenade isn't finished. She throws the room doors open and tells him, I've got one more thing to show you. Suddenly, Sinyan rockets into the room and faceplants right in front of everyone, then screams at the top of his lungs as he slams into the floor. Derek and Melito both get blindsided, and Melito clocks the guy instantly as she blurts Sinyan's name. He just lies there on the ground, utterly wrecked, sweating buckets like trash after getting tossed aside. And the queen's smile vanishes as she snarls that this man was a liar, promising he could fix a national treasure, then destroying it instead. She locks eyes with Derek and asks, can I get you to take that disgraced ex-guild leader as your own personal apprentice? The moment Sinyan realizes he'd have to work under the same guy he kicked out, her face twists pure fury and total disbelief exploding at once. He scrambles to his feet and begs the queen to hold back, shouting that someone as incompetent as Dare can't be allowed to seize the reins. Queen's serenade won't even let him finish. She slams him down on the spot and tells him to his face that he's the only incompetent one in the room. The queen snaps at Sinyan to fix his attitude, and the way he talks, and the next second he's screaming in agony as she grabs him. Derek just watches it all unfold, totally thrown off by how intense she is, and realizing, yeah, she's straight up terrifying. The queen tells Derek she's assigning a watcher, and right on cue, Senji steps in and introduces himself. Senji flashes a huge, friendly grin and tells Derek to chill because he's going to keep trouble out of his path for good. Derek just stands there with his arms crossed, sweating a little, because he knows he can't exactly ignore a direct order from the queen. So he just goes along with it, slaps a hand to his chest and tells him, if that's the deal, I'm in. The queen leans in and tells him she can't wait to see what he does next right then. The massive throne room doors slam into motion and start swinging shut. Everyone huddles in the hallway as the doors slam shut with a brutal thud, trapping the whole group alone together. Derek drags out one long, heavy breath, finally shaking off the tension now that the meeting's done. He throws both arms up into the air, then tells the group the truth. This whole thing hit way harder than he ever expected, and it had him on edge the entire time. Derek rubs the back of his neck, feeling the day's weight crush in, and tells everyone, I'm heading back to my inn for now. Senji fires off a question about where he's staying, and Derek points it out right there in a spot over in the East District. Senji offers to let the National Army set him up with a place to stay, but Derek shuts that down fast, telling him there's no need to worry. He grins like, yeah, this is where I'm at right now. And you can tell it's secretly one of the best spots around. Since Senji's headed out, he decides to walk alongside him for a stretch on the way back. As the sun sinks behind the buildings, they hustle through the city, pushing forward until they finally land in the East District, where Derek slams the brakes in front of a giant wooden inn and shouts to the crew, "We're here." He shoves the door wide, yells for Taru that he's finally back, and the shock from inside hits like lightning. Taro barrels in with a huge grin, welcoming him home, and confessing she'd started to panic because he'd been gone way too late. Then Milital storms in, glaring like she's ready to explode, and drops the bomb that she's moving into day 2, leaving Taru utterly lost. Milital stands there like she owns the battlefield, hands locked on her sword, pure confidence blazing. She totally gives off a chilling vibe as she announces she's moving in today. Senji gets blindsided by the news, and while Derek scrambles for the right words, Taru nervously swears she'll have a room ready for her right away. Tarot snaps her focus back to Derek and calls his name out loud, like she's pulling him back into the fight. Then she asks if he wants to hit the bath first or go for dinner, and he decides they should eat first because Milital's coming with them. Milital shoots out an annoyed glare as Sinyan hovers nearby, clearly seconds away from snapping. He crashes into the room and starts screaming like, "Why is Derek always the one stealing all the spotlight?" Sinyan doesn't let up. He barges in and screams that he's staying at the inn too, and that's how everything flips into chaos, right? Genji straight up kicks him out of the room and fires back. "Did you really think you'd be allowed to hang around in a decent spot?" Tara looks wrecked about it, then blurts that the inn's completely packed. Milital's party's taken over the whole place, so all that's left for anyone else is the stable outbound. Sinyan is losing it over the thought of sleeping in a stable, but Senji snatches him up and hauls him away, barking that he should be grateful for what he's got. As they burst out the door, Sinyan keeps yelling that he's still the guild master until Senji cuts him off and reminds him, loud and clear, he's nothing but an ex-boss now. Toru yells at everyone to hold on for a second as Derek slumps back, drained by the chaos. And right then, Milital bursts in and calls him teacher. Derek glanced at her, totally baffled. Milital leans in and asks if he's free tomorrow night, and when he tells her his schedule's completely open, she perks up. She flashes this massive blushing grin and blurts out that the two of them should ditch the crowd and hang out alone tonight. The very next morning bursts in and right away massive stone walls loom over everything. A whole crew of people waits to meet Derek, and then one guy steps right up, thrusts out his hand and tells him, "I've heard nothing but amazing things about you." The man admits it after that spoiled brat kicked them all out of the guild. He was freaking out about what came next, so he leans in to tell Milital how amazing it feels to be back, then adds that it's been ages since he last saw the commander. Derek looks completely wiped out as the girls stare at him from behind, and he can't stop thinking how wildly better everything is now than it used to be compared to. Senji shoots a look over at a miserable mess, grabs Sinyan, and yells that he can't believe there's someone out there just as awful as Nana Hikari, like only a total psycho would even think of breaking a national treasure. Sinyan snaps the truth into the guy, stunts like that usually earn a death sentence, then warns him he'd better thank his lucky stars the queen's in a merciful mood. But then Senji snaps his focus back to Derek and tells him the wait is over, time to get to work and repair the Amatsurugi, and the military guy nods along like, "Yeah, you're 100 right." Then one of the blacksmiths snaps, dares him, and slams a giant heavy sack onto the workbench. Thud. The man swings it open and orders Derek to tear into everything inside. Then bam! A treasure cache of wild larvae rock and aqua stones spills out, and the other smiths are left completely stunned. Arms crossed, the guy explains he's been hiding these high-grade materials for ages just so Nana Hikari would never get the chance to use them. He leans in and tells Derek, "Trust me, these materials are about to shine way brighter in the hands of a real craftsman like you. Especially because they're about to rebuild a legendary blade, and the smith can't hide his grin. These parts are finally going to become part of the Amatsurugi." He stared at the shattered sword and said, with full conviction, there's no higher honor for a blacksmith than what they're about to forge right now. The guys huddle around the stash, and one of the smiths blurts out that these materials are ridiculously high grade, while the rest of the sentence hangs in a sharp, tense. Derek stared up at the workshop and vowed he'd put every last thing to good use then, right before he could start. The lead blacksmith asks if he can stay and watch him work, and the girls immediately swarm in. Derek blasts back, saying it's totally okay and that they're more than welcome to join in too. He lets the moment go and snaps his attention back to the blade, staring at how stunning the sword looks the longer he stares. He just stares at it standing over the workbench in total silence. his mind racing as he realizes his past self was, honestly, it's downright unreal. Cold sweat explodes across his face the second he realizes just how insane the skill level is. Then he starts to doubt himself, like, does he even have what it takes to beat the man he used to be? While the other smiths just step aside, thrilled to finally watch him hit the forge and start working. And he'll hand you watches with a calm grin, then stroll off, leaving Sinyan in the back, miserable and bitter. Militol's eyes shine like stars, and she's totally amped for what's about to hit. While Derek tightens his glove, he hammers the thought into his head this time. He's going to top everything he's ever made. The moment he dives in, the workshop explodes with the brutal clank of metal crashing into metal. Before long, someone screams in shock as the newly refined Mitsurugi sits there, blazing with light. The other smiths stare in disbelief. He patched it up in record time, just like they always said the best smith would. They mobbed the blacksmith, bombarding him with questions like, how did you even slap a holy attribute into the... And the words hang there, waiting for the answer. The blade. They turn it into an interrogation, grilling him on every move, then begging him for lessons, until Derek feels completely overwhelmed. Overwhelmed military guys keep cracking jokes about how famous he's getting, but he just grins and says he's proud of the weapon and tells her she's definitely exaggerating. He tries to play it cool, then he spots something that makes his eyes narrow. Creepy in the back, and Sinyan's just standing there fuming so hard he looks like he's seconds away from snapping. Militol snaps that it's time to get to work, tells Sinyan to kick things off by trying to swing the hammer first, but Sinyan totally loses it. He starts screaming at her to stop giving him orders, like she's running the show. Militol can't stand it. He rams a brutal kick into him and snaps that he needs to stop acting all high and mighty. She just keeps stomping him while he's down on the floor, and Derek watches in shock. Once Derek's back on his feet, the other smith shoves him forward and orders him to flatten a metal plate. And Derek blurts out a warning to stop him before everything gets worse. Sinyan just snaps his tongue, grabs the hammer anyway, and tells him to watch his own fingers. The other blacksmiths shuffle back, huddle up, and whisper like they're terrified watching. Stuck on just how, Sinyan shrugs them off, hurls the hammer up high, and lines up a brutal swing then. But when the hammer slams down, every single person watching instantly realizes something has gone horribly wrong, and the next thing they know, Sinyan's thrashing on the floor in pure, unbearable agony. The blacksmith nearby darts over and demands, Sinyan, you really okay? But Sinyan cuts him off. He snapped and screamed at the guy to back off because he'd rather die than let anyone feel sorry for him. Chaos explodes even harder when another smith screams that it's dangerous, and Sinyan immediately spirals out of control. In the back, the other workers huddle and whisper about the mess, and Derek looks totally fed up with him. Everything, especially when Sinyan keeps ranting that nobody has any right to look down on him. One of the guys just lets out a heavy sigh and rubs his head like he can already feel a mountain of disaster lining up in front of them. So later, the crew slips into a local tavern, grabs drinks, and they all drop into their seats, ready to celebrate the huge news Lord Dallet's new pick for his exclusive blacksmith. The whole crew hoists their mugs and blast cheers for the new job until then. Then Taro just locks eyes with them, radiating pure seriousness, and demands to know what happened next. Taru scans the table and asks why she and Comfy even got dragged into this, while Comfy just keeps checking if the whole crew finally showed up. Derek pipes up and tells them, I invited everyone myself, then gestures at the rest of the smiths and soldiers kicking back too, while Militol's already in her seat, totally wrecked, glaring like she's one bad mood away from exploding. Militol starts chugging her drink like it's her last chance, and Comfy totally snaps, screaming at the commander that she better not take more than one single bite of food. Someone slams their mug on the wooden table with a thunderous thud, shouting that they want the exact meaning behind that comment, and then the talk spins straight to booze, while they start showing off those bizarre delete dolls in a bunch of versions different ages, like tiny mascots made just for the night. Cuffy lets out a worn-out little smile, sighing that she's way too late to stop the chaos now, especially when someone shouts that the main event is finally here. Militol snatches one of the tiny dolls and declares, this is all for real, then leaves Derek frozen in place staring at her like he has zero clue why she's playing with toys. One soldier leans in and blurts that there's actually an extra doll in the pile now, And the guy beside him just laughs and nods like, yeah, he's right. A woman nearby sees everything unfold, then snaps at them for going way too far, like they just keep making all of this over and over again. But Comfy straight up tells everyone to back off once the commander steps into this zone. She won't snap back until he finally crashes into sleep. Milital keeps pounding her drink like a beast, and Taro just stands there stunned because that dignified commander image she built is getting obliterated. She can't even process what she's seeing. The enraged adventurer leans across the table and snaps in, telling everyone she's heard the whole story about Comfy's huge blacksmithing contest. She tells Derek she heard he forged that legendary weapon for the kid, then thanks him for everything while Senji just sits there, quietly munching. Derek puts on this sweet, humble act, tells her he only did what any normal blacksmith would do, but the adventurer won't let that slide. He calls him painfully modest, because Cuffy just crushed a brute who's famous for insane strength. Derek tries to dodge the credit again, claiming the win only happened because Milital's training paid off, and because he had the guts to make it happen. Senji just freezes there with a spoon in his mouth, eyes dead still, listening while their words fly back and forth. He suddenly cuts in, leans toward Derek, and demands to know if he's ever going to forge a weapon for himself, right as the smith's drink is still in his mouth. Derek stares at him like he's lost his mind, cracks up, and asks why he'd even need a weapon, like he seriously thinks they're out here adventuring for fun. Senji flashes him a massive grin and says he thinks it's a brilliant idea, leaving Derek utterly clueless. Militia fiddled with a few tiny figures as he said, if Derek actually uses the weapons himself, then he'll finally understand what it's like from the user's side. Then she teases that he'll even get extra time with a gorgeous upperclassman. So yeah, it's a win-win, right? Derek nods and admits she's got a point, but he cuts himself off mid-thought, suddenly staring at the crazy idea of finally having a weapon of his very own. Weapon thoughts keep crashing through his head as he struggles to understand this shift, going from just making things to becoming a user. Back in the workshop, Derek snatches a metal block, grinning like he's about to take the leap. The forge comes roaring to life, the chimney coughs and starts hauling, and right as he steps into business, everything fires up. Later on, Milital steps up before the ex-guild smiths and declares loud and clear that Derek is about to forge himself a weapon. She flashes them a huge smile and says, defending yourself isn't some mystery at all. It's just plain common sense. As Derek pipes up, he swears learning to work the gear will make his forging sharper and more precise than ever before. The second the group locks in, everyone erupts into cheers, saying they're all in on the plan and can't wait to see his skills level up. The soldiers start hyping themselves up, pushing Derek to sit back and let the real pros handle the gear when it's time to use it. And Derek flashes a huge grin at them, then tells them, thanks for always having my back like that. Then out of nowhere, a thunderous voice erupts, screaming for everyone to stop dead in their tracks. It's Sinyan, and he's totally losing it. He's screaming that he doesn't buy the plan at all, yelling that the whole thing is just unfair. He keeps raving, hounding them to hand him a weapon, whining that he's being left out while the other guys just stand there dead-eyed and bored. Suddenly, a hand shoots out and clamps onto his ear like a trap snapping shut. It's Milital, and she chews him out. Stop talking trash and get back to training, or she'll march him right back to his desk. After the usual drama plays out again, the whole crew just collapses into one long, exhausted sigh, and that's where it leaves. Derek just stood there with a jittery laugh, trying to keep up while everything around him spiraled out of control. A little later, the whole scene snaps over to the Grosso Army warehouse. Derek dives into the warehouse supplies, grunting hard as he shoves everything aside while he snatches up a handful of stones, hunting for the perfect material for the job. He's grinning like a kid in a candy store, firing off one great pick after another, and Milital just stands there, saying nothing at all, pure, tense silence. She finally snaps into action, asking him straight if he's allowed to take whatever he wants. Why isn't he snatching up the A-rank materials? But Derek keeps pawing through the crates, insisting the low-rank stuff is more than enough for her. He stared at the rocks in his hands and said, I'd rather save the high-quality stuff for the soldiers' weapons. No way I'm wasting it on myself. Then his sentence cut off like it got stuck. Milital just freezes on the spot, totally stunned at how fiercely selfless he's being. Right there in the warehouse, she starts trembling and sobbing, breaking down so hard it knocks Derek completely off guard. She wipes her tears and tells him, straight from the heart, that no matter what happens, he's still a truly magnificent person. Derek lets out a shaky laugh and tells her, point blank, that she's totally blowing this way out of proportion. Derek stands outside the workshop, grinning like he's finally hit his moment. He's ready to start. All the apprentices crowd around him, firing questions. What are you building? And their guesses fly wild, from axes to magic wands. He flashes a shaky grin, scratches the back of his neck, and admits, yeah, he's been thinking about it nonstop. Then the idea of forging a sword gets tossed into the mix. Milital practically explodes with excitement at the idea, saying she'd be more than happy to teach him how to use it. But Darrett instantly shuts it down, looking awkward as Milital just freezes completely stunned. He makes it clear everyone can already see how it plays out in their head, like he'll accidentally stab his own leg. Or worse, drop the blade and clock himself right in the hem. Instead, he tells them he's already picked the perfect tool for the job, and the military has no idea what he's talking about yet, as then he lunges down and clamps his hand tight around the handle of his chosen tool. He raises it like he owns the moment, flashing a confident grin as he plainly declares he's going in with the hammer. Milital can't even process what she just heard. Does he really mean to use a hammer? The whole crew is just as shocked at that move. Derek insisted he finally knows he can use it for real. Then he shrugged and told them that when it all comes down to it, the weapon is basically just a hammer. And it feels like he's swinging a mallet straight to the nerve because he's standing there grinning at the crowd, insisting this app is no different from the tools they swear by as blacksmiths. So the apprentices finally snap back to reality, cheering because they get it now, and they tell him this is exactly the wild, outside-the-box move they'd come to expect from him. Smoke roars out of the workshop chimney as metal keeps slamming into metal, ring after ring blasting through the air, while Derek finally strides out, gripping a monstrous heavy-duty block hammer. Chest puffed out like he just won the world, he declares it's finally done. And that's when the moment leads to the whole crew losing their minds. They all swarm in, yelling that the new weapon looks sick. And Derek just locks in on his work, grinning like he knows a secret because even he can't deny it. This is a full-on masterpiece. But then it hits him. There's one tiny loose end left. The hammer still needs a name. And right as he says, Milital bursts in wearing the biggest grin, all fired up, and tells him she's got an awesome idea for what they should call it. The apprentices are fired up, yelling that this is exactly what they expected from their Legion commander, already sure that whatever name she picks is going to be top tier. Milital clears her throat and snaps everyone to silence for the big reveal. Then she pauses, milk slow on suspense, just before. She flashes a huge thumbs up and blurts out, "The weapon's called the Delete Hammer. All swagger, all pride." Then she turns to the group like, "So what do you think?" But the moment hangs there, dare what? Derek just stands there, totally stuck, letting out a confused little sound while the rest of the crowd glares back with dead, blank faces. And that's when Derek winced hard because the name felt straight up lame. But right when his hope was slipping away, the apprentices suddenly snapped into action, flipping roles and roaring with wild cheers like crazy, and everyone starts yelling like, "That name is so cool and so simple." And they're all gathered around the weapon, going on and on about how its massive shape actually matches the name perfectly. So Derek steps in to block them, flailing his hands like crazy and shouting for them to hold up. He's clearly not buying that name, but Milital and the others sparkle with stars in their eyes, way too hyped to even listen, while Derek just grumbles under his breath because now that he's stuck with this, there's no way he's walking out of this argument as the winner, especially since a little time slips by and the hype finally starts to calm down. Everything's locked in because the new weapon is ready, and the whole workshop roars with cheers, everyone buzzing like crazy over the brand new hammer. Derek decides, since it worked out, I'll just roll with it, while the workshop keeps roaring as everyone hammers away on the next project. He tossed the hammer aside. This thing is an S-rank weapon with holy power that turns your magic into a hit that feels like a meteor slamming down. A few weeks slid by, and over at Training Ground 2, things finally started to ignite. Derek's out there swinging for real, pouring every last ounce of power into hurling that massive hammer through the air. He's totally locked in, eyes glued to the weight and tracking every twitch of the weapon as it moves. The kid watching him blurts out how much he's improved lately, and Derek just wipes the sweat off, shoots back a quick thanks, and you can tell he's genuinely thrilled with how far he's come. Later on, Derek hooks up with Militol for dinner, but he's quietly freaking out over the bill because it feels like his coins are about to sprout wings and vanish into thin air. Back at the old guild, Senji bursts in with a squad of royal guards and demands to know if Master D-Raid is here. He blurts that he's a palace messenger hunting the legendary Blacksmith, and just like that, Sinyan's mood hits rock bottom. Senji swings in and says he's got a proper request while Sinyan just stands there trembling, absolutely unraveling, because the guy she kicked out turned out to be a total success. Sinyan can't process a word of it. He starts shaking on the spot, demanding to know if they're really asking him for it, because the shock is hitting him so hard he can barely breathe. He drove a brutal hit into him, then screamed at Senji, demanding to know if they'd somehow made moves on the great guildmaster himself, only for Senji to cut him off on the spot. Sinyan starts a full-blown meltdown in the background, but the messenger and the royal guards don't even flinch. They turn around and start walking off while the guildmaster tries to look fearless, stands there with his hands gripping his vest, and declares that Durate is gone for good, since he personally kicked that incompetent fool out. Senji snaps completely when he hears it. He barrels up to the guy, shouts at him, and demands to know what he thinks he's doing by kicking the blacksmith out, but Sinyan struts like he owns the place. He shuts his eyes, flicks his hand, and declares that the guy wasted guild resources and never showed him a single ounce of respect. He smirks and declares the blacksmith got exactly what he deserved. Then, Senji's shaking, while the guards stare in shock, trying to figure out how their target could have really vanished. One of the guards blurts out how absolutely insane this is, because the queen herself personally praised this level of skill in a blacksmith, and yet Senji is about to topple and pass out from the absolute mess they've stumbled into. Sinyan just throws back a stupid laugh and orders them to trust him, while the guards finally clock that they're in deep trouble. While the guildmaster cackles to himself, Senji snaps into focus, grips his team, and tells them to hunt down Dorade before anyone else does anything. Senji clocks the item and demands to see what's inside that box, but Sinyan lunges to cut him off, screaming that he's the guildmaster, and he's way higher up than some nobody like Derek, so he yanks the lid open anyway. Watch the guards lose it, calling him an absolute idiot while Sinyan gets slammed by a blinding burst of light blasting out of the case. He can't even process what he's seeing, because what he sees next is absolutely unreal. The angelic treasure sword, a Matsurugi, a legendary S. Rank, holy weapon, just sits there, glowing like it's daring anyone to touch it. Sinyan trembled as he stared down at the blade, and a weak groan slipped out of him because he'd never, ever seen anything like it. He blurts that it's gorgeous, like an angel got trapped in the sword's aura right up until... Once Senji blurts out he brought it for Derek to fix, Sinyan snaps, then she panics, screams that it's a national treasure, and demands to know why Derek has to be the one to lay a hand on it. Senji just exhales, then slams down a truth bomb. Derek is the reason they need Derek, because he's the one who forged it. The moment Sinyan hears the news, his whole body locks up like his brain just cuts out on the spot. The moment it hits him, he kicked out a legendary smith, his mind starts replaying it on loop, and a full-blown meltdown explodes in real time. Sinyan totally snaps and roars at them not to mess with him, while everyone nearby just stalls in stunned silence. And he keeps screaming that no guy like Derek could ever forge a blade like that. Then the guards rush in to drag him off Senji, but Sinyan just stands there, seething like a storm, grinding his teeth, while Senji freezes up and blurts out an awkward explanation because it's not only about how it was made. See, turns out the Amitsurugi didn't just work, it evolved, and now it's packing way more power than it ever had before. The air in the room feels razor thin as the guards clamp down on Sinyan and keep her pinned, while everyone else just stands there, eyes locked, watching the chaos explode. Sinyan can't even wrap his head around a weapon evolving. He just glares at Senji and snaps if he's trying to make a fool of him. Senji doesn't even blink. He tells him straight up, it's the truth. And he points out the queen herself issued a direct order to find the sword right now. And that's when Sinyan starts sweating as he keeps repeating the words under his breath, because the truth finally slams into him, full force. Then it all breaks. He snaps, screams that he's had enough, and charges straight for the case to fix the sword with his own hands. He lunges in and clamps his hand around the blade's hilt, like he's about to swing and make it count. Senji panics and lunges toward him, shouting that Derek is the only one who can actually fix the sword, while Sinyon shrugs it off and rockets forward. And he just keeps pushing forward, swearing that the greatest blacksmith is the one who finally climbs up and becomes the guildmaster. With a chilling stare locked on, he keeps whispering to himself over and over that he's the chosen one, that he's the real guildmaster, and nobody else. Senji just freezes on the spot, totally shell-shocked, as someone barks at the kid to stay right there, and Sinyon snaps and starts screaming for everyone to get out of the room, and the locals waste no time. They bolt, running for their lives. All alone, he stares at the sword and spots the blade is chipped to hell. He shrugs it off like it's nothing and figures a whetstone will fix the damage. He drops into a workbench seat, admits he's never sharpened a single sword in his life, then swears he can pull it off anyway just by watching his guildmates work. He plants the blade on the stone and tells himself, with total confidence, that he's got this because his eye for details is razor sharp. He's so packed with himself, he actually thinks one look is enough to master anything until a thunderous cracking sound tears through the whole area. Every guard outside jolts back because something inside goes brutally wrong. Senji rockets toward the room where the crash just hit, screaming for Sinyon over the booming noise, while the guards scramble around trying to make sure nobody's hurt. Sinyon bursts back from the closed door, snapping at them to shut up and stay silent, because he's still trying to get work done. So Derek snaps back to his training days back when his younger self coached him, warning that his hammer swings were slowing down and yelling, "Watch your opening." The kid presses on, breaking down how that weapon hits different from a sword, because it can double as a shield, so they can't just attack anymore. They have to drill defense. Derek just grins, tells him, "I'm good, I've got this," and keeps right on rolling with the training. Back when they were just starting training together, and back then Derek was a complete wreck. His whole body screamed from the workout. He couldn't even lift a finger. But he didn't stop. He clenched his hammer, drove through the pain like a storm, and kept pushing until he felt like himself again, and he told the kid, "I'm good, really." The young boy's shoulders finally drop, and he grins while telling him, "That's awesome." Then he urges him to keep smashing it. The kid won't stop talking about the training, and he keeps bragging that his hammer technique is, honestly, it's way better than he ever expected. Like all those years of smithing are finally hitting pay dirt, and then he goes, "Wait." Derek keeps hammering away with everything he's got until the kid finally tells him, "All right, break time." He spots a perfect patch of shade under a huge tree and plops down, breathing hard for a moment to catch his breath, while Derek snaps his gaze up when someone strides over and praises him for a job well done, because the next sight he sees is, it's Malidal grinning as he says he's got his hands full, hammering away at all the smithing and training. Derek cracks a grin and tells her he's having an amazing time here, and she can't help but point out how thrilled the soldiers are to have him around. On the field, one of the younger guys shouts at Derek to lock in his form while they keep drilling, and Derek just stands there grinning ear to ear, like he finally spotted his home. But right nearby, someone else is lurking, eyes locked in with an unblinking, razor-sharp stare at everything. Tucked on Melittl's belt is a tiny keychain cartoon. Versions of her and Derek hang there, like a little piece of their bond on display. Derek clocks it right away and bursts into laughter, then asks if she's really been stuck wearing that thing the entire time. They're both just sprawled out under this giant tree, and Militol glances over and asks if he's really okay with how things are going. Derek cranes his neck to the sky, and the moment he actually stops to think, it all starts to click. Lately, his life feels like a blur. He can't stop thinking about the guild, the endless traveling, and every face he's met, and it all crashes back as one wild, nonstop whirlwind of days. He realizes that if Militol hadn't sent that letter, he'd have no clue where he'd been dumped or what life he'd be living right now. Militol just grins, staring straight at the horizon, and honestly, these have been some absolutely perfect days in a brand new place for both of them. Derek's face softens with a calm that feels almost unreal, and he can't help wishing this perfect moment could last forever until, then right out of nowhere, someone sprints straight at them, screaming for a messenger at the top of their lungs and shattering the silence. That calm, peaceful mood shatters in an instant. Derek and Militol both whip their heads around, like something huge is about to blow their minds. A soldier comes sprinting in, yelling at the commander that a massive emergency is blowing up right now. The soldiers dare the machine to spin, and she snaps to attention and demands what's happening as the messenger gasps, fighting for every breath. He finally squeezes the words out of his mouth and blurts that something is about to go down in the Stone Tree Forest. Turns out an iron bear has been spotted, and it's a wild anomaly, a rank monster that's way more dangerous than anything normal. Milital and Darrett are left completely speechless, still staring at the news like it can't be real because an A rank actually showed up. The news hits like lightning, and the whole crowd loses it. People scream that the anomaly is out, while everyone scrambles to snatch their gear. Milital doesn't waste a heartbeat. He charges straight toward the trouble with a stone-cold stare, and Derek shadows him right behind. As the chaos surges around them, Derek shoots a look over at her, and he asks what a special exception anomaly even means. And that's when Milital realizes she never once explained the term to him. She tells him these monsters aren't just tough. They're a whole new beast, wickedly smart and far more vicious than anything they have ever faced. Darrett admits he's never come across anything like that before, but it fits, because they're such a rare spawn. So Milital straight up tells you these things are fueled by a massive grudge against humans, and the second they spot you, they'll come for your life. Darrett gets blindsided and blurts out if they really attack just for looking at them, and Milital shuts him down. Yep, that's the truth. The whole thought of an aggressive monster turning into something that actually sinks in for real hits Derek like a punch, and he can't stop thinking about just how terrifying that is. Milital halts mid-convo, blurts a quick apology for bringing it up after that terrifying talk, then asks if he'll tag along with her group. Derek just freezes in place for a second, staring ahead with a totally blank, unreadable face. He finally snaps and erupts with a shout, "Why am I getting dragged into this mess?" While everyone else gears up, Senji just stands there, dead serious, like he's already bracing for impact. Milital steps up in front of everyone, Darrett standing right beside her, and with a hulking hammer in his hands, he looms as she begins her briefing, saying that everyone already knows it, so here it is. The Iron Bear has officially been spotted in the Stone Tree Forest. Two girls in the crowd lean in with bated breath as the briefing keeps rolling on. Milital says the target is clad head to toe in metal armor, and there's this creepy black ring mark sitting on its neck. She also says they've got to test whether the loot they snag from the hunt can actually be turned into real weapons. Then she blurts the bombshell, and Darrett's coming with them for the mission. Every soldier looks pumped to have a real pro like him riding shotgun with them. Someone claims this is the perfect moment to see if their training truly hits, while Derek just freezes and awkwardly blurts, "Hello." As they gear up, reality hits like a truck. This stuff is brutal, so the simple moves won't cut it. A command blasts over the ship to stay sharp, and the whole crew erupts back with a loud, eager agreement. And with that, the whole line of wagons lurches forward, rolling straight toward the forest. A few hours later, Darrett slams to a stop at the edge of the Stone Tree Forest, staring in disbelief as they finally made it. They finally push into the forest, and right away someone whispers that it's brutally dark in there. Milital slams down the order to scatter and start hunting, and the soldiers roar their reply. At her command to scatter, the troops burst into the thick trees, swallowing the path ahead and spreading out fast, leaving Milital, Darrett, and Comfy huddled up together, and Milital blurted that they've got to get moving too. They push deeper into the darkness, the only thing breaking the silence being the wind tearing through the branches overhead. As the trio strides through the woods, they stick shoulder to shoulder, moving as one tight unit along the path. Comfy's hands start to tremble, and she blurts out that the thought of real combat always spikes her nerves. Derek admits he's nervous too, and the kid's jaw basically drops. But he flashes her a calming smile and tells her everything's going to be okay because Milital and her holy attribute are right there with them, and she wastes no time. She snaps that she's ready. Milital stays locked in and points out they've got the real upper hand because only they're carrying the one piece of gear that actually works, especially the delete hammer and Shinma. She knows those are the keys to the entire mission, and as they stride forward, that special blade dangles at her side, already poised like a silent promise of what they're capable of. The trio slips into a huge clearing in the woods, and Milital blurts that any ordinary attack gets wiped out and healed up on the spot. She even points out that holy attribute weapons are only the kind of thing Lord Dalit could forge, and she tells the guys the older blacksmiths already tried to use that monster's materials only for it to all fail, no matter how they work. She looks at Darrett and basically goes, "See, this is exactly why we need you." Then she laughs and tosses out this cheeky joke about how it's a total win-win because who wouldn't love hanging out with a gorgeous upperclassman? Derek can't stop thinking, then it hits him. If he can forge a holy weapon from those materials, they'll finally have a real shot at wiping out those one-of-a-kind anomalies. Milliottle nods and shouts her support, insisting she's absolutely certain Derek can pull it off. But right then the entire crew snaps to a stop. Something lurks in the shadows and pulls their eyes to it. Suddenly, a whole swarm of goblins lunges from the brush, with clubs swinging, and the group gets totally blindsided. Comfy snaps and starts screaming that she's about to be eaten, while Derek just stands there gripping his hammer, looking every bit as freaked out as she is. Milliottle forces herself to stay calm, then counts 5 of those creatures because if there are this many, a nest has to be lurking nearby. The goblins creep in, eyes locked on the group, clubs lifted high, ready to strike. Derek swings his gaze to Milliottle and demands if she's really about to take them on, but she just shuts him down, saying there's no way she's fighting. Since there's no bounty to chase, she isn't wasting her time. She grabs the reins, goes to push them away instead, and races toward him. She lunges down to snatch a handful of tiny stones, and her eyes snap with laser focus as she locks onto her targets, and as she fires those rocks with razor-sharp aim, they smash into the goblins' heads with brutal impact, sending them stumbling back in agony. And it works like a charm when the monsters hear her. They start shrieking and sprint straight back into the bushes to escape her. The goblins whirl their heads back one last time with pure, frustrated fury on their faces. Then they bolt forward anyway, still leaving. Derek just stood there in dead silence, still trying to wrap his head around how she handled that whole situation like it was nothing. Right when it looks like things are finally settling, another pair of goblins burst out with clubs raised, hunting a fight like they can't wait to start it. Comfy completely snaps in panic, eyes wide with terror as the monsters close in fast. Milliottle spots them barreling in and screams for everyone to back up. She's poised to jump in, but then Derek suddenly darts past her, and her eyes go wide as she blurts his name just as he's gone. He clamps his massive smithing hammer in his grip, then rips into one colossal swing that blasts every single goblin soaring through the air. Milliottle and Comfy are so stunned they can't even process it. Both of them just stare at him with their mouths gaping open. The goblins slammed into the dirt with a brutal crash, tumbling over each other in a chaotic heap before they scramble to their feet and rocket back into the bushes as fast as their legs can carry them. Derek just stands there, smirking like he's finally won, and tells them that his training has all paid off. Comfy bursts into applause, and the whole crew fires off military cheers because both of them are absolutely wired by the way he just handled it. Comfy gazes up at him, eyes blazing with pure stars, and blurts out that he's straight up incredible for the way he took down those goblins. Milliottle chimes in, and 2 more voices back him up, saying it's seriously wild he's already reached this level after just a few weeks of training, making Derek flushes bright red, then scratches the back of his head and blurts out a shy thank you, like he can't believe anyone's praising him this hard. Milliottle barks for them to keep moving, and Derek nods, pushing them back onto the path so they can finish their trek through the woods. But just as they take their first steps, a thunderous cracking roar rips through the trees, freezing all 3 of them solid in mid-motion. Comfy flips out, shouting, "What was that sound?" spinning around like she's about to bolt. As Derek finally turns to the pros in the group, worry hits him hard. He grimaces and fires a question at Milliottle, asking if she has any clue what's going on. Millittle's smile vanishes. Her face turns deadly serious, and she snaps at both of them to stay back and get behind her. Right now. The woods suddenly hold their breath for a heartbeat, just that empty path, boxed in by thick trees, waiting for them. The 3 of them make their move, then freeze in place, eyes locked on the dark brush, holding their breath, waiting for whatever just rustled to finally show itself. A weird beam suddenly erupts from deep inside the dark bushes, and it blindsides Derek, completely caught totally off guard as someone screams, "Move," and they have to scramble, dodging whatever's about to hit them right now. And then boom, a massive twisted chunk of wood slams down out of the sky, so huge, so brutal, that Militia can only stare up, stunned, as it crushes everything in its path. As the impact slams down, the whole area disappears under a massive dust cloud and a storm of falling leaves. Derek just freezes on the spot, eyes bulging, as that hits raw power crashes into him. When the dust finally starts to settle, you find a massive crater where the road used to be. 3 of them are scattered everywhere, And the worst part is, and everyone looks beat up. Comfy is trembling, Darrett's drenched in sweat, and Militol is so stunned she can barely get a word out. Comfy blurts, "Are you okay?" while a panicked scream rips out of her, and she can't even wrap her mind around what's happened. That close call leaves her shaking. She rushes to thank the commander for saving her, but Militol cuts in, "Good. Now keep your guard up," because the real threat finally steps out. Out of the trees stomps a massive bear in full plate armor, ready to tear into anyone who dares stand in its way. Militol snaps the monster as a rare anomaly, and Iron Bear Durad, who's practically trembling, just keeps staring up at it, screaming about how insanely massive it is. Militol snaps at Comfy to blow her whistle right now, and when that massive bear locks eyes on them, Comfy blurts, "I've got it." Comfy slips a small whistle to her lips, takes a sharp breath, and readies a signal to bring everyone else in. A piercing shriek cuts through the woods, snapping everyone's attention nearby as they halt mid-step, whip their heads around, and stare in total confusion. While Darret and Comfy watch from behind, Militol steps out in front and declares she'll be the one taking on that thing. She lunges for her weapon, shouts Shinma, and readies herself to finally show him what she's truly capable of. The blade shoots out, and a brutal flash erupts across the air, nearly blinding everyone standing nearby as, standing tall with a sword of pure light, she orders the bear to get ready and to draw its own blade. Everyone watching is left speechless as Shinma's sword morphs like that right in front of them. No way they're seeing pure white energy for real. The final showdown is locked in an armored bear squares, up against Militol and her glowing weapon, while everyone else scrambles to keep their distance. The Iron Bear squints hard, fixes its gaze on Militol, and suddenly a blur whips past the giant beast so fast it almost tears the air, like the beast can't even process what just hit him. Darret and Comfy are completely stunned. Darret blurts that Militol just disappeared out of nowhere, vanished from thin air. She unleashes the Godspeed dance, then she becomes a streak of light in the hum, and the bear bellows as brutal energy slashes slam into its armor from every single angle. Darret's watching the chaos, and it's written all over his face, pure stress. But right beside him, Comfy's just standing there looking completely pumped. Militol rockets into the sky, leaping high over the monster's head to snatch the perfect opening then, after. But once she lands, she spots smoke crawling up from the bear's armor, and she's stunned, swearing there's no way her attack didn't hit clean. Staring at that towering beast, she realizes the monster didn't just show up. It fully hid every vital spot, and the bear's massive foot slams into the ground, shaking everything as it stays right there, standing tall. Militol is completely blindsided by what's unfolding right in front of her. A colossal, armored bear just looms in the middle of the woods, solid as a tank, unmoving, like it's daring anyone to come closer. It suddenly shifts its weight with a massive thud, like it's charging up to unleash something, and then a whole swarm of giant nuts blasts in from every direction, raining down on the group from all angles. It narrows its eyes, zeroing in on every moving target with insane, laser-sharp focus, and in a blink, every projectile gets swatted out of the air and crashes into the dirt like it's nothing. Darret's spiraling out of control, bragging that it's insane he blocked every single nut coming at them, while as Comfy jumps in, she's yelling that the Legion commander is insanely impressive for moving that fast. Militol stands his ground and locks eyes with the beast, claiming these weird anomalies have far more brains than anyone ever expects. But the bear isn't finished. It suddenly launches into a full-on charge, and Militol blares a warning that it's barreling straight for them. Militol bursts straight into the fight, shouting that she'll take care of everything by herself, and she digs in, jaw set tight, as the giant bear roars inches from her face, trying to force her to back down. The battle kicks off in a heartbeat. She lashes out with her blade, and the steel's flash dances straight in the beast's eyes. Mila grits her teeth and strains to keep pace with the monster's overwhelming power. But the bear slams its full weight into her, and she can barely pin it back with her sword. Comfy spots the opening right before the monster strikes and screams at the commander to watch out. As Darret watches those enormous claws load up to slash, he knows he can't just freeze and wait. He has to move right now. He bursts in, swinging that massive hammer, roaring at the beast to take this, and he slams perfectly into the bear's jaw, cracking it with a hit so heavy the whole beast spins out of control. The armored bear gets hurled away like a rag doll, skidding through the dirt and slamming straight into the brush. Militol thanks Derek for stepping in to help, but Derek's face only tightens with worry as he snaps, "It's not over yet." Comfy lunges into action, yelling that she'll sprint off and fetch the other soldiers, but Militol grabs her to stay frozen in place as the armored bear hauls itself back onto its feet behind them. Everything goes fuzzy as the monster blitzes past their expectations, snatching them off guard in a blink. The beast zeroes in on the kid sprinting right at her, and she just stands there so frozen in place then the bear explodes forward and roars with pure fury, nearly pinning them to the dirt in the blink of an eye. Militol clenched her teeth hard, like she was blaming herself for letting things spiral into this nightmare for everyone. Derek screams in pure panic, watching the monster bear down on both girls at once. But Militol snatches Comfy at the last second, skidding across the ground to pull her out of danger. Comfy snapped her head up in total disbelief, barely catching the fact that she'd just been pulled out of the beast's deadly charge. The little kid snaps, drops to his knees, and screams at the commander, begging him for forgiveness for everything he's done. But Militol just winks at him, tells him to chill, and assures him she's totally okay with a few scratches. Derek stares at them. Panic spikes in his chest, and he can't stop wondering what they're supposed to do now that Militol's beaten to the edge. He stares into the woods and realizes something's terribly wrong. Comfy blew the signal whistle, yet not a single soldier is coming. So he clamps his tool in a tight grip, swearing to himself that he'll protect the two of them no matter what hits them next. But then he freezes and realizes just blocking the monster isn't the move anymore. Instead, that look ignites in his eyes, and he steels himself to erase the problem for good, straight on his target. That armored bear just stands there like a brick wall, clueless about the impact about to slam into it. Derek goes deathly quiet, sweat pouring down his face as he pours every ounce of strength into one crushing command. And just like that, the beast's metal leg armor crumbles into black dust, then slips off in a fading cloud. Derek stands there, hammer in hand, staring the monster down. Then he spots a strange black glow spilling from it, and his mind starts to race as it gets worse, and realizes it's the exact same glow he's been hunting for when he studies blacksmithing. Materials for flaws. He's noticed it for a while, but now it finally clicks. He realizes that if he treats the monster like nothing but raw metal, he can hunt down its weak spot and just like that, boom, a massive cloud of dust explodes right in front of the beast, and Derek freezes, totally blindsided as he yells, "Did that thing just smack me with pocket sand?" He's drenched in sweat, utterly baffled, like his brain can't catch up. Militol stays right behind him, eyes blazing wide as the whole situation cranks up another notch. That armored bear isn't finished. He hurls a massive metal-clad claw down on him with a thunderous roar. Militol's screams rip through the air, and Comfy watches in total terror, convinced it's the end for their teacher. But Derek digs in his stance, winds up for a brutal swing, and says that with his hammer in hand, he's going to win, so he digs deep, throws every last bit of his strength into that strike, and swears he'll spill every drop of his mana into this one shot. Derek unleashes one last bone-crushing strike that slams so hard the whole area quakes, and then boom, an earth-shaking blast rips open a massive crater deep in the woods, and hot steam hammers up from the center like it's about to reveal what's next. The armored bear collapses into a pile of black ash, and Derek just sits there on the ground beside his hammer, and he's frozen in pure shock, staring at the wreckage like his mind can't wrap around what just happened. Up on that ledge, Militol and Comfy are freaking out. Militol shouts down, demanding to know if he's okay, and then she slides down the cliff to reach him, and Derek is still reeling from his own power until she snaps, asking if he really has zero idea he just did this. She snatches his arm and says, "The second you swung that hammer, a blinding light swallowed everything," and then Derek stares at the giant crater, like, "Did I really do this?" And Militol just gives him a hard nod. Yeah, it was all him. As they trudge back through the wreckage, Derek just shrugs like it's nothing, telling everyone he must have been locked in yet. But Comfy doesn't care about the power. She tackles him in a huge hug, sobbing that she thought he died, and he just grins and tells her he's sorry for the scare. Militol perks up when she hears rustling in the bushes and whips her head around. And right beside her, Derek sits on the dirt like he's totally comfy, just chilling. Still sobbing into his chest, Melito glances back with a shaky smile and tells him it's only the soldiers who were meant to be. Slipping in as the backup, the squad finally reaches the spot and just stands there, staring into that enormous hole like it's staring back. Left buried in the earth, and one soldier can't stop wondering how much damage that strike truly packed, while the others clock that the bear is completely dusted like a meteor, just smashed down. But Derek doesn't even blink. He keeps patting Comfy's head like nothing happened. He leans over the sea of trees and lets out a breath of pure relief because he's finally sure he was strong enough to hold them off. They're both safe from that thing, Shin. A few days slip by, and back in the city, the military starts dropping by, daring it to ask how he's doing. Derrek's got her up. She admits she's still a bit sore, but she'll be fine. Then she turns around and asks the exact same thing. She answers, "I'm all ready." Derek just sits there staring into space, thinking how it must feel awesome to still have that young fire. Then the thought cuts off. Then that healing power kicks in fast, so he fires back, asking if that forest is under military control. And Melito snaps that it is, even though he can't shake the feeling he's missing something. Derek's whole body starts trembling as panic explodes in his face, and he jabs a finger at himself, begging to know if he's really the one who's going to pay for all of it. Every hit tears up the forest, and Melito just stands there, face totally blank, like she's stunned into silence. Then she erupts into laughter and tells him flat out, that's never going to happen. Then she starts explaining why. They're doing the exact opposite, turning the whole area into a monument, so the battle lasts for the next generation. Generation? She grins and drops the bombshell. This delete crater already has an official name. Just like that, Derek's stuck at the table, totally wiped out. Then, a little later, he forces himself to try to change the subject. He glanced toward the commotion and heard a ton of shouting, blasting from inside. Melito nodded along, saying that out on the training grounds, everybody outside is absolutely fired up. The energy is through the roof. Pretty intense. One of the leaders rips into the soldiers, screaming that they're pathetic, like a guy such as Derek isn't right there to show them how it's done. Work your tails off, drop everything and start over right now, and you're doing 1,000 push-ups. Melito beams as she says Derek's work lit a fire under the soldiers, and Derek just stands there dripping sweat, clueless if she's serious, but the kids have already caught the spirit at bolting through the woods as they shout "Comfy" with non-stop wild energy. Someone shouts praises for Derek's grind, and Comfy halts just long enough to salute the commander, then announces she's about to blast through 10,000 laps around the perimeter and that leaves Derek totally hollow inside. He can't even wrap his head around someone actually daring to run 10,000 laps. Melito flat out admits that daily hardcore training like that would likely wipe them out. And Derek just lets out a long sigh like, I guess it's okay as a one-time thing. They both freeze for a heartbeat, then just stare as Comfy jogs off into the distance. Then the little girl suddenly freezes, whirls around with shock in her eyes, and blurts out Melito's name. Melito asks what's going on, and Derek grins, teasing if she's already finished the 10,000 laps, while Comfy just stares at him like he's out of his mind, insisting there's no way that could have happened. Right then, the sharp click of fancy boots on the ground starts closing in fast, and just like that, they aren't alone anymore. Then a voice blares out that a guest from the Glossa Academy of Magic has just arrived. Melito shoots. So you really expected a visitor? And the girl stepping up instantly flashes a smile like, yep, she's right on schedule. She flashes Derek a smile and tells him it's been 15 years since they last crossed paths. Derek just freezes in place, totally blank, utterly clueless about who this girl is or why she's calling him Lord. Meanwhile, back at the guild, Sinyan is soaking wet in sweat, clutching his chest like he's 1 second from a full-on heart attack because the sword he'd been forging suddenly shattered, snapped clean in half right on the workbench. He spirals deeper and deeper, ranting the same brutal thought over and over while his head whirls like it's trapped in a storm. Because shattering a national treasure is a colossal crime. There's no way anyone's letting that slide. He's spiraling into full panic, firing off frantic questions in his head about what he's supposed to do now that he just destroyed something so important. He gapes at the shattered blade in pure disbelief, terror freezing his bones as he braces for what's about to happen. But he clamps down on his panic, fires up his deep breathing technique, and forces his mind to lock in on a solution before he snaps. Sinyan's eyes blow wide, and the second a desperate thought hits him, he realizes that, so if the sword cracks, he can just jam the pieces back together. Boom, and he starts frantically tearing through his storage crates. He bursts out in relief the second he finally digs up a bottle of temporary adhesive liquid, trapped at the very bottom. Sunlight blazes over the guild's roof as the mountains loiter in the distance, totally silent. Sinyan finally steps outside to greet his guests, apologizing for the wait, and Senji just smirks like, "Relax, I'm telling you, you're right on time." But when the kid reaches out to check the work, Sinyan snaps, calling him a total amateur and warning that the sword is far too delicate for him to even touch. Senji tries to shoot back a reply, but Sinyan snaps into defense and fires off, asking if that kid is actually questioning his skills. Senji panics and blurts, "That's not what I meant," while Sinyan only grunts, spins around, and walks off. He lifts the sword with a cocky grin, asks how it looks, proudly shows off how spotless the repair turned out, but Senji squints at the blade and asks if it's still got a little chip left. Then Sinyan snaps back that he's imagining things. Sinyan snaps, gets defensive, and screams at Senji to shut up because he's got zero proof. Then he turns around and decides to. He just shoved the sword back into its box, betting that if it was packed tight enough, he could pin every scratch on the shipping crew later. But the moment he lowers it, a brutal snapping crack echoes from inside the crate, and the sword pieces clattered across the floor right in front of everyone, freezing Sinyan in place while Senji, in the guard, just stared at the whole disaster unfold. Sinyan's sweating starts pouring out. His face goes ghost white as he realizes there's no way in hell he can hide this anymore. And the guards aren't even pretending to be impressed. They just stare him down like they're weighing his every move and finding nothing but judgment. The rest of the staff is horrified, clapping a hand over their mouths, praying they could vanish to anywhere else right this second. Senji just freezes, staring at the shattered metal with raw, jaw-dropping shock, and he turns to Sinyan and grills him about that fixed sword claim, sending him into a stutter while he blurts out excuses that make zero sense. As Sinyan panics, the other blacksmiths hang back and do nothing, just staring while their boss flips out and torches the guild's reputation. Sinyan just stands there, drenched in sweat, pretending he's clueless. Then he insists it's all way too weird because he's 100 sure he fixed it the right way. But Derek just stays hunched over, shaking with pure rage, while Sinyan tries to laugh it off because the nerve of him is so wild, he even jokes about making it a two-piece sword now. That's the last straw for Derek. He snatches Sinyan by the collar and roars in his face, calling him a total screw-up. And Sinyan instantly panics, totally stunned by what's happened to him. Derek doesn't even blink. He slings the guy across the room like he's nothing, and he keeps screaming that Sinyan breaks everything he touches, swearing he never should have trusted him, while Sinyan just huddles on the floor, grumbling that he's the rude one. Right then, a chill voice slices through the room and shouts, "Sinyan," freezing everyone in their tracks, with a glare sharp enough to cut. Senji steps into the spotlight. Then the officer slams his finger in his face and declares him under arrest, right there, and officially. Sinyan's face goes stone still when the truth finally slams into him. No excuses left, no time left at all. The story yanks you out of the guild and drops you into the calm streets of Grossa, where just for a breath, everything looks normal. Like the chaos finally took a seat and stopped. Just when someone starts explaining how things finally calmed down after that brutal mess at the Blacksmith Guild, Derek sinks back with a mug of tea, somehow looking totally unbothered, then casually drops the bomb that he got kicked out of his old guild. Militl sits across from him, shaking with fury, blurting that she can't even wrap her head around it. They're banishing a blacksmith as talented as him, and she snaps, plunges her knife into her cake, and blasts the guildmaster as incompetent so hard that Derek can't help but get a little nervous. Outside on the road, a carriage rockets away, while a guard inside the chaos barks at the passenger to stay perfectly still and behave. Turns out Sinyan's trapped inside, flanked by two guards, wrist cuffed tight, just sitting there staring at the ceiling like, how did my life crash this hard? He just sits there, teeth clenched in pure frustration, and as he spirals over Derek, he starts telling himself over and over that this whole mess is really the blacksmith's fault. Sinyan's eyes turn icy and dead serious, and he vows to his own heart that he'll strike back and take his revenge, no matter what it costs. Back at the Grosso Army HQ, the soldiers are hammering through training, while someone rushes in to apologize for turning the whole personal blacksmith situation into a huge mess. Militl tells Derek she'll hear him out for now, and Derek nods as they stroll past the guard. Milital strides through the grounds, gesturing ahead like she can't wait, and suddenly there it is. The destination finally comes into view. She leans in and tells Dorade that the huge building looming ahead is the official smithing facility for the Glossa army. Dorade stared around, blown away by how massive the place was. He even said it was exactly what he'd expected from the National Army, since this building was insanely huge. Milital wastes zero time. She rips the door open and yells for everyone to come in, making sure they all know she's here. Inside, the workers are scrambling nonstop, but the man at the front locks eyes on her the instant she appears. Then he shouts to the Lord Commander at the top of his lungs. And just like that, the entire crew stops mid-task and scrambles into formation. Someone barks out the order, and they salute to honor the military as the derate walk-in is ready. Milital stays sharp and calls everyone to stand at ease. And as derate trails behind her, he's got this totally impressed look on his face. But every worker leans in, eyeing that mysterious woman like she just dropped from the sky. Then one of the guys finally corners the commander and demands to know who the guy behind her really is. Milital flashes a proud smile and introduces him like it's a legend. This is Lord Dirate, the man who forged her magic sword cinema. The whole room freezes in stunned silence as the Smiths just stare because they're staring right at the man who forged her weapon, and none of them can believe it. Dirate shoots them a shy smile, scratches the back of his head, and nervously tells everyone, "Nice to meet you, I'm Dirate." The workers start whispering right away. One guy is stunned to meet a legend, while the other shrugs it off like he's just some random old dude. The gossip keeps roaring, and everyone starts wondering if Milital's being played, especially when the sword Seinma has zero official maker's mark. So the whole room felt suspicious as hell. Nobody could wrap their heads around how this plain-looking guy could have forged a weapon this legendary. Milital snaps the conversation in a new direction, throws out the current situation, and so she demands to know where Lord Nana Hikari is hiding, and the workers freeze up like they've been caught, admitting there's a problem they can't dodge. They point at the empty forge and say that the guy barely lifted a finger before he just vanished into thin air. Dirate suddenly realizes this whole thing feels painfully familiar, especially as the workers admit they tried tossing the lazy guy hints, but nothing ever clicked. Dirate fires, "So this is what you meant back then, those circumstances?" And Milital just gives a slow nod, because the real truth is that Nana Hikari doesn't just have a job, he bankrolls the National Army with mountains of cash, paying to stay their exclusive smith. Turns out, this guy is the Duke of Felgrand's only son, so he's been living a pretty sheltered, high-class life, basically where he can do whatever he wants. Milital says he's a total jerk and a lousy blacksmith, but they're stuck swallowing it all just because of his family name leaving. He thinks annoying people are the same in every world, but Milital shoves him forward and dares him to prove what real talent looks like right before things explode. The door slams open out of nowhere and a person strides right in. Nana Hikari saunters into the room dressed way too fancy, then immediately starts grumbling that the shop is painfully hot and suffocating. Just standing there wearing that smug, glittering grin like he paid to own the whole place. Militial and the workers are totally caught off guard as someone suddenly screams Nana Hikari's name. Dirate just glares at him, thinking how insanely dumb it is to rock those clothes in a workshop because it screams Sinyan all over again. Milital demands answers. Where has he been? But he waves it off like it's nothing, saying he was out on a date. And when a worker presses him about the urgent repairs, he glances at the sword like it's no big deal at all. Nana Hikari casually flicks the sword over like it's nothing and tells them it's right here. The blade smacks onto the floor, jolting one worker back as he blurts out a shock-filled yell. While the others can't even process what they're seeing, Derek snaps at him, yelling that he's got no business swinging unsheathed weapons around. But Nana Hikari smugly strikes a pose and asks if the job isn't good enough, and Derek blurts out an awkward, forced thanks, while desperately trying to keep things civil despite the bomb. The obvious tension, Dorate just stares down at the weapon with a completely exhausted face, and it's no wonder the sword looks wrecked. Nobody ever bothered to clean or maintain it. For a split second, the whole group just stands there in dead silence. Then D-Rate finally clocks it. Milital isn't messing around. They really need help. And then Nana Hikari suddenly shoots to her feet and blurts out to them, and Dorate freezes, stunned, scrambling to figure out what's coming next as the bomb. He slaps a hand to his face and plays it up like a tragedy. Then he launches into a furious rant about how he wrestled to fix the sword, and just as everyone's about to respond, he snaps, lunges, and yanks Dorati by the shirt, then screams in his face, demanding to know why he's so miserable after all that hard work. Durit just freezes in the dark, staring into the shadows like he's finally hit rock bottom with all this chaos. Suddenly, Nana Hikari yanks him by the shirt and starts shaking him like crazy, creating a massive scene that makes the workers nearby recoil in total shock. Dorot just stands there, shell-shocked, as the guy basically dares him to prove he's a real blacksmith, then demands he fix the weapon the right way, and insists on it while Dorot can't even react. The younger guy snaps and starts yelling, demanding to know what the old man wants, then orders him to let go right now. Milital barges in to stop the chaos, yells at Nana Hikari to calm down, then drops a bombshell. Dorate is the legendary smith from Lighton, the one who forged the Shinma. The kid snaps into silence instantly. Skin turns ghost pale, stammers ripping out a confused answer because he can't believe who he's really talking to, and his words just trail off. And Melito keeps the pressure cranked up, insisting that a top-tier smith like him should have zero trouble teaming up with Dorate as a two-man unit. Nana Hikari goes silent for a heartbeat, eyes racing as she locks in her next move. He rakes his hair back, tells D-Rate he wants to prove just how good he really is, and leaves D-Rate staring in confusion like, what does he even mean by skill as the... He flings his arms wide and yells that they're settling it in a smithing contest, no hesitation, no turning back. Nana Hikari lays it out. Both of them will forge swords, and they'll clash with one rule: whoever breaks first loses, and Darrett just nods along like he's got it. Like, I understand, it's the go. He lifts two fingers and tells you, loud and clear, that there are really two conditions behind all of this. He jabs a finger at the junk pile and snaps that Dorit can only use what's right there. And for the second condition, he squints into the distance and calls out the one who'll actually swing Derek's sword in the fight. Every head snaps toward the smallest kid standing totally alone in the middle of the crowd. The girl says, I'm Comfrey beginner class, and it instantly leaves Derek completely lost, like he has no idea what's going on. He can't process it. He blurts her name at the top of his lungs, and it hits him. He's at a brutal disadvantage. But Nana Hikari just drops a deep, tired sigh as that little girl in the background starts flailing her arms like crazy. Derek crossed his arms and finally caved into the job, and Militul instantly lost it, freaking out and screaming at him. Nana Hikari declares the deal officially sealed, and Militul groans because the truth hits hard. There's no turning back now. Nana Hikari jabs a finger in Derek's face and bellows that the huge showdown kicks off in 5 days, then warns him, if you lose, you're straight back into the middle of nowhere. Derek crosses his arms, fires back with his own demand, and says that if he wins, the kid has to finally take his smith work seriously for once. Nana Hikari scoffs, turns his head, and says he'll make a special exception letting Derek use the local forge, so Derek can't help but wonder why he's acting so high and mighty. Militia bows low, blurts out a frantic apology for everything spiraling out of control, but Derek waves it off only for the crowd to start whispering that the commander might be in trouble. The little girl's coming undone, tears streaming, shaking with overload, and she blurts that she only came to get her sword fixed, not to get yanked into some insane duel. Derek stared at her and told her not to worry, swearing he'd forge a sword so unbreakable it'd laugh at the fight, and everyone snaps silent as he whips his head toward the forge, then starts explaining how you can forge top-tier gear even when all you've got is a pile of junk. Is exactly what a real blacksmith shows when it matters. He shoots them a confident wink, then casually tells them to hand him everything and trust him to handle the rest. The two girls stare up at him with eyes blazing, completely fired up and inspired. Smoke curls from the chimney as the real work kicks off at last. The forge fire roars louder and louder as the heat surges inside Enda's stone. Derek stands right in the shop's middle, staring at his D-rank stash like, wait, this is actually more than enough. Just as the door knocks and the moment explodes. He yanks on his thick leather gloves and announces it's finally time to move. And right then, Militul strides in, greeting him like, Sir. Derek asks if she wants to see him work for the first time in forever, and the second he tells her to just stay back a little, her face lights up and she blurts out that she's in. Militul slips onto a bench in the corner to keep out of trouble, and Derek plunges his tongs into the roaring heat, yanking out a piece of glowing metal. He glares at the anvil, knowing exactly how many brutal steps he still has to master before this sword can be forged. Every blueprint and secret detail he's ever learned the memories are already blazing in his mind as he zeroes in. He exhales, then brings the hammer crashing down, blasting the whole room with a scorching flash as it slams into the steel. Milital grins as she watches, already lost in the thought of how wildly amazing his hammer sounds. Sparks burst all over as Derek snaps back into work. He hasn't swung a hammer in weeks, but his blacksmith blood ignites as he falls into the forge's blazing rhythm. A massive grin crashes across his face because he can't stop himself. He's absolutely obsessed with smithing. Then he snatches a small thunder monstone to crank up the weapon's sharpness, knowing that one boost will slice with way more cutting power. Locking in with dead serious focus, he declares he'll forge the ultimate sword for Comfy, no matter what it takes. He sinks into the seat and locks back in, knowing this is exactly what he has to do right now. Derek lets out a quiet little sound as he finishes, and Melital snaps into shock like, "Wait, are you really done already?" He shoots back a quick answer as she leans in, reminding him that after 30 years of grinding, his smithing speed is on a whole other level. Derek's palms go slick as he stares at the results, in S rank. It's way above what he ever expected, and his mind screams, "Impossible," even as the sweat keeps pouring. Milital asks if Derek isn't going a little overboard with this one, and Derek just brushes it off with a laugh like he can't help feeling a bit embarrassed. A furious militia member blasts out a shout in the courtyard, calling everyone's attention because she can't wait to announce Derek's sword is finally complete. She hails Comfy to come over. The whole crowd erupts in chatter. Derek's a top-tier blacksmith, and the speed he forges with is absolutely unreal, he snapped into a crisp salute and asked, wide-eyed, if it's really done already. Derek stands there clutching the blade, bluntly admitting the whole thing happened way faster than he expected, so he just stares. So he drops his gaze to the hilt, grins, and gets ready to flex this thing he just forged. He raises it high, then lightning rips from the blade, and the weapon practically introduces itself. Kamina, the S-rank lightning sword. Everyone watching just stops dead, mouths hanging open, stunned by the raw power blasting off that weapon. And while the crowd buzzes about how wild the energy is, Dorette shoves it into Comfy's hands and warns her, "Be careful, this stuff is dangerous." Comfy just gapes at the glowing blade, awe hitting her hard like it's the prettiest sword she's ever laid eyes on. Milital sinks into the eyes glow and purrs that Derek poured his whole heart into forging this blade, so she has to go all in just to stay alive. Comfy charges in with a glowing sword, saluting hard as she vows to make good. Live up to those feelings, to gear up for the blacksmithing duel. Milital snaps and lets everyone know she's taking full control of the kids' training. Behind them, the soldiers start cracking up because they know just how brutal their commander can be, and they all break into chaos and milling around. Milital barks at Comfy to get ready because the brutal training kicks off tomorrow morning, and Comfy looks absolutely terrified. Yet somehow she manages to, as the sun kisses the city goodbye, she struggles to blurt out an answer. Everyone's screaming for her to go all in. But over at the Nana Hikari Manor, everything hits way louder because that young noble is losing it, screaming his lungs out. He's flipping out because his dad did that to him. His gorgeous arms got a red mark, and he's calling the whole thing complete, unforgivable, no excuses. He slams himself at the table, fuming, then snaps for his maid, Aegon, who looks up and says, who's sick of his whining, and shuts him down with a short, blunt answer. Nana Hikari's nerves are still fried after his father's visit. When the agent slides up to the table, he jolts in his seat like he's expecting the worst. Eyes locked on him. He's completely freaked out because even though his maid nails her job, there's something about her that straight up gives him the creeps. He thrusts his arm toward her and barks that she needs to dig up some kind of proof, anything, so he can drag his old man into court. But Aegon doesn't even blink. She just shuts Nana down and flatly says she's not doing that. And the second those words hit, Nana Hikari snaps, demands what she means, and then So she still grabs his arm and starts wrapping it up with a bandage while she works. She talks about the young master's arm being, "Yeah, it's all good." She tightens the knot, then looks him dead in the eye and tells him, straight up, he's perfectly healthy. Nana Hikari growls to himself as Agen strides off, grilling him about the strange pile of glowing rocks sitting on the table. Nana Hikari claws his confidence back, then starts bragging nonstop about the S-rank stash he swiped from the family vault dragon scales. Flamestones, the whole dangerous haul. He barks an order at her to haul the stash to the country's best blacksmiths and forge a top-tier sword, and Agen just nods, saying she understands, leaving. Nana Hikari seethed in silence, fists clenched hard as he swore he'd get his revenge on that old man no matter what. It's day one of training, and Milital is fully geared up, ready to explode into action the second the session starts. She tells Comfy flat out that 5 days won't cut it to truly get better with a sword. Derek just watches from the side. Milital just blurted that they have zero clue who that spoiled brat, Nana Hikari, is about to choose as her next opponent. Derek just stands there, utterly on edge, like the whole situation is suffocating him. Milital tells them the real mission is simple. Keep that sword from snapping before the fight even ends. She locks eyes with the Comfy and asks, "So you get what you're supposed to do?" And the kid snaps right back, "Yeah, she's got it. She just has to dodge and parry every single hit coming her way." Milital shrugs and says it's fine. Then for the rest of her training, she whips out her sword so fast it's like time itself just snapped. She surges forward, screams that Comfy will learn the hard way right through her body, right before he rockets up into the sky, yanking the spotlight away from the Comfy place and leaving them standing there, completely stunned because the real training is finally underway. Derek watches from the sidelines, then completely snaps, yelling in pure shock as Milital slashes with savage speed, and Comfy's calm face shatters as the blade rockets toward her. Militia shouts orders at him, warning the kid to stop blocking with the sword's flat and instead grab the blade with the edge. She somehow stays upright and bursts into cheers, feeling on top of the world for a split second then, but Milital doesn't let up. She slams for the next round, and Comfy scrambles to stay sharp, even though the pressure is crushing her. Then a military officer snaps at her again, screaming for her to catch the incoming strike with her blade. Metal clanged against metal across the training ground, and Comfy manages to dig in and hold her ground while she freezes in shock, realizing she really pulled it off. She's still gasping for air when the military just disappears like it never existed. Comfy spins around, panicking, and blurts, "Where's the Legion commander?" Only the military closes in right behind her, and she jams her sword against the kid's neck, declaring the match is leaving them completely stunned. Milital keeps the heat on, barking at Comfy to never drop her guard in a fight, then snarling, "Are you trying to get yourself killed?" And the kid can only blurt out how sorry she is while she struggles to keep pace. She pleads with Milital for one more round, desperate to prove she can. Derek watches from the sidelines, stunned that this is way too brutal for a first day of training, and he can't stop thinking about it. And finally, boom, it catches up to her. Comfy face plants into the dirt, drained to the bone, as they're slumped there, drenched in sweat, coughing for air. Yet she somehow forces out a thank you to Milital for the lesson, even though she looks like she can't move a single muscle. But Milital blurts out huge news starting tomorrow. They're training with the Kaminas. Comfy only manages a tiny, weak reply from the ground as, with a grin, his military soldier turns to Derek and orders him to get those Kaminas ready. Derek's face screams stress, but he yells back that he'll get it done. Night crashes over the land moon, blazing overhead, stars scattered everywhere like the sky's on fire. In the mess hall, the whole crew crowds in for one loud, shared meal. The kids are absolutely demolishing their food, shoveling it down like they haven't eaten in days after that brutal workout. One of the guys at the table blurts out that training with the commander is basically like getting thrown into a real war, and Comfy totally panics, blurting out if they really were watching her out there, while the boys just smirk and confess they'd been lurking in the shadows the entire time, and that kicks off a whole conversation about just how insane her talent is. They're stunned. She can match Milital's pace, especially when she's so tiny. But Comfy isn't getting away with it. She shoves food in her face and snaps that, calling her tiny as straight-up disrespect. The guys burst out laughing. And right when one of them notices she's already finishing up, and she pops right up and tells everyone she's heading out for the night. Then the guy beside her stares, shocked she got out this fast. But the boys shrug it off and dive right back into their meal, laughing and chatting nonstop as they crunch through their bread. And as Comfy starts down the hall, a voice rings out with her real name, Comfrey, so suddenly she stops dead in her tracks and gets a total shock when someone whips a big warm towel down over her head. She freezes for a split second, completely caught off guard as the older boys grin at her and warn, "You better not catch a cold after that brutal workout." Comfy flashes them a quick, respectful bow and then breezes right past, leaving them standing there. Derek freezes in the shadows, holds his breath, and watches in silence for a heartbeat. Beneath the blazing full moon by the castle, he spots her and points her out, saying she's out in the field, swinging her sword alone in the dark. Comfy lets out a battle cry, pouring every ounce of strength into her training as she sprints into the air and whips out sharp jumps and slashes, while Derek locks onto every single move. The moment she finishes her set, she wipes the sweat off her face and grabs a breath, just as Derek strides over and tells her she absolutely crushed it. Comfy snapped his head up, shocked to find him right there, then blurted, "Is that really you?" But Derek flashes her a warm smile and leans in, asking what she's doing out here training this late. So she lays it out. This is just her nightly routine. No drama, no secrets, and she admits she only wants to catch up to the commander, even if it's just by a tiny bit. With a huge grin, she blurts out that Militol is basically her idol. So yeah, it's a big deal. It makes Derek nod, and he tells her, "I get it." But knowing Militol's training is straight up hardcore, he can't help worrying, so he rushes in to check on her. Comfy tells Derek he's honestly one of the nicest people for doing that, and he immediately rubs his neck like, "Wait, was I just being nosy?" But she cuts in fast and says it's totally fine. Comfy stares at that blazing blade, and a fierce thought hits her. She can't let something this beautiful shatter on her watch. Determination locks in as she vows to get. Derek just stands there listening while she pours out her heart, talking up that incredible sword, making it sound alive with crackling thunder and a sharp, tingling buzz that won't let go. She keeps pushing forward, and it totally blindsides him. He goes dead silent for a beat, like, "See." So Comfy tilts her head up at him, worry creeping into her voice as she asks, "Are you okay?" Derek jerks back to reality, but then he cuts himself off, he mumbles an apology for barging in, then tells her he's turning around right now, wishing her a good night as she watches before he starts. He marched down the deserted street beneath the lamp glow, boots thumping the pavement as he flashes back to the look on Comfy's face, totally locked in, razor focused, then realizes just how fiercely she loved that sword. It really hits home for him. He can't stop thinking how long it's been since anyone truly praised a sword, the one he forged with his own hands. And honestly, he can't even recall the last time it hit him like this. He hasn't felt it in ages, and as he heads home through the quiet night, and as the world settles, a small, real smile finally blooms across his face. Derek gives himself a quick, okay, then turns and strides on. 决心就此出发后，他一边哼着歌，一边冲下街头，脑子里盘算着接下来要怎么把卡米娜好好调整一番。4 days slam by, and the story snaps to a massive mansion where a guy blurts out to the guild master, and you can practically see the rage building in him, like he's one word away from snapping. Nana Hikari jabs her sword at a jittery blacksmith and demands, "Why is this air ink even a thing?" while she rants that it's got zero flexibility. The blacksmith is sweating through his shirt, frantically trying to tell everyone that forging with S-rank materials is brutally hard, but Nana Hikari just snaps at him, "Incompetent fool," and orders him to get the hell out. And the poor guy tries to talk about his payment before Nana Hikari glares him down with a terrifying stare and demands, dead serious, should he just pay her back with his life. Nana Hikari twists around and snaps a sharp command, forcing the Asian guy to bolt, and then she orders him straight to her room. She left the agent there, saying in a calm voice that she understood. Detrawa, the strong-arm destroyer, steps into the room and snaps right to his master, "Were you calling for me?" For inside, Nana Hikari is just kicking back, casually grabbing his cup of tea like nothing can touch him. Detrawa braces himself against the wall and lays out the entire situation to Nana Hikari and her maid, finishing every last detail. Nana Hikari slams his hands on the table, grumbling that sword was supposed to be S rank. Then Detrawa cuts in, saying the rank barely matters, and he shrugs, saying it doesn't matter what weapon it is because he's going to crush it in half no matter what. He starts pushing with all his might and screams that he'll do it exactly like this, bending a thick metal bar using nothing but his bare hand. Metal clinks and echoes across the floor, but Nana Hikari just stays there, frozen in brutal silence. Detroit just lets out a tiny huff and crosses his arms, like getting away with it was the easiest thing in the world. When I spot the shattered metal on the floor, it hits me this fight was doomed from the very first second. Nana Hikari flashes that smug grin and tells them it's fun, even as he secretly thinks the whole thing is a total drag. Nana Hikari sinks back, tea in hand, and orders his maid Agen to keep his parents completely in the dark about all of it. She just nods fast, swears it's handled, and mouths that she won't spill a single word. But she just stands there, frozen in place, her face utterly blank. Next up, big day, the sun's blazing, and the smithing contest is finally primed to explode into action. But after Nana Hikari gets tossed out of the family, a mysterious voice lurking in the dark calls out to Agent, demanding an update on their secret plan. Agent stands alone in the courtyard, and now he has to deliver the crushing news the entire plan blew up and failed completely. Turns out it all traces back to a top-tier blacksmith named Derrit. He crashed in, seized the spot, and became the Grossa Army's exclusive smith. The person she's talking to snaps that they don't tolerate failure, and the agent instantly crumples to the ground, apologizing like her life depends on it. Her voice cuts through the doubt, telling her she's still useful to them, and then, right after that, in the mirror's reflection, a shadowy figure materializes and tells her, "I'm giving you one more shot, get it right this time." Agent keeps her chin low and tells them she's genuinely honored they're treating her like this. The shadow we spot in the mirror wraps it up with a chilling grin, saying he's got sky-high expectations for what's about to come next. Agents staggered away from the meeting, wiped out like their last drop of energy had been sucked dry. A little later, a random girl suddenly pops up in front of the whole crew, and Derek blurts out, "Wait, who are you?" The girl looks stunned that he doesn't recognize her, and she just stands there, letting her hair drop over her eyes, all mysterious until she suddenly perks up and introduces herself as Izu, then calls him Lord Derate with this ridiculously intense, heavy aura hanging around her. Derek starts sweating because the vibe she's throwing out feels way too familiar for comfort. Then it hits him, bam! He remembers how they used to play together nonstop as kids. And Izu just lights up, thrilled he finally found the memory, and she suddenly lights up, all sparkly and pumped, blurting out how thrilled she is to see him again. While Militol stands off to the side, fuming and glaring. Izu starts drifting into her own little world, cheeks burning, babbling that she can't stop thinking about him. Derek tries to brush it off as just being tired, but Militol cuts him off. She's had enough and steps in to tell the girl to back off from him. Izu spots Militol and shouts that she's the Legion commander. But Derek is stuck on one thing: she's still dragging that doll around with her everywhere. Izu's joke cracks Militol up because when she says she's still just a kid, it's impossible not to laugh. Militol takes that joke terribly. Her smile snaps off, and it looks like she's 1 second away from exploding. And she just stands there radiating dark energy, then drops the line that she's done messing around. She's thinking about settling things with Izu once and for all. They lock eyes, and it's like sparks are blasting back and forth between them. Derek slips in, drenched in sweat, begging Izu to tell him why she came here. And the second she realizes his point, she knows he's right. She tells Derek she's come to talk about something, but then, out of nowhere, loud footsteps thunder in, and someone yells her name. And then this short, mustached dude glares at Derek and snaps, "Who the hell am I supposed to be looking at?" While Izu pipes in and introduces the new guy as Vice Principal Bayer. Izu tells the guy that Derek is actually the National Army's exclusive blacksmith, and right then, Derek blurts out an awkward, stiff hello. The Vice Principal snaps and screams that she can't believe she's lying. There's no way some filthy old geezer is the master blacksmith, leaving Derek utterly crushed. Bayer is absolutely furious that Derek actually had the nerve to talk back to him, and the second they get back, he's already plotting to reward Izu with private lessons as punishment for bringing the guy around. Izu refuses to back down. He marches straight to the Vice Principal and demands he take back what he said. Then Militol steps in, swearing she'll personally vouch for Derek's skills. The second the Militol speaks, Bayer's whole vibe snaps. He starts creeping in fast, slobbering, ravishing at her, and claiming he's honored just to hear from her. Derek just stands there, staring the whole mess down, thinking the old guy is nothing but a pathetic joke. Out of nowhere, a voice slices through the crowd, screaming Derek's name, and there it is, Sinyan, screaming into his phone, firing off excuses about how he's doing what they told him, but the tool keeps breaking on him, again and again. The second Derek hears the name, it clicks in his head instantly, like he knows exactly who it is, while everyone else just sits there, watching the moment explode. Sinyan keeps blurting apologies into the call, admitting he can't seem to stop smashing his own equipment. Bayer spots him and flashes a totally shady look, like something's about to go down. Before he could even point Sinyan out and shout him over, Sinyan whipped around, instantly curious about what this guy wanted from him. Bayer suddenly starts raving about Sinyan, telling the guy his talent is unreal and that it's a total crime for someone like him to be trapped in a place like this, which kicks off. Derek and the whole crew just froze there, staring with dead-eyed faces like they couldn't process a single thing they were witnessing right now. And then Bear leans in and asks how it'd feel if Sinyan came to work under him, straight up offering the guy a job as a special instructor. Sinyan can barely take it in. He keeps asking himself if you is really who he's talking about, and the word special won't stop echoing in his head until he finally gets to the end of he snaps completely, throws his hands in the air, and yells that he's the real natural-born genius. Bayer decides they're bolting right now to report back to the academy, and Izu scrambles to make him wait, but the moment the idea clicks, Bayer's already moving on. He shoots Izu a seriously creepy stare and tells her that the second they're back, she's got to march straight into his office. Sinyan can't hold it in and starts flexing at Derek, telling him to quit because there's no way their skill levels are even remotely close. And he leans in and tells Derek, spend the rest of your life bowing to me, act like you finally understand I won this whole thing. Derek just stands there, utterly drained by the whole mess, and he can't even find words for how ridiculously stupid this is. Izu, Militul, and Senji just froze, staring wide-eyed at the bizarre scene they barely even processed. How things spiraled into this mess later? They all regroup back at Army HQ to pick up where they left off. Finally, they catch their breath. Izu smiles and tells everyone they absolutely crushed it today as they sink down with their tea. And mate, Derek, can you believe the academy actually has a guy like Bayer as vice principal? Militial just nods, and he says handling someone like that has to be. Izu tells her it's really not a big deal, but she still feels like she has to apologize for every last bit of trouble. And yes, total chaos, Derek snaps. That becoming head instructor is a massive promotion for her. Milital adds that she's just relieved Izu is finally getting the credit, but then she brushes it off with a grin, then leans in and tells Derek that everything she's accomplished is really thanks to the staff he forged for her, because it all started with him. It hits Derek like a punch to the chest. He freezes mid-thought, swearing he's heard those exact words before. And Izu pushes him to take one quick look. Then she yanks the weapon out on the spot, and the reveal hits hard, showing them they wielded the legendary Great Mega Staff, Diwan Danas, rank holy weapon that radiates pure, terrifying power. Derek grips the staff and just stares at it, totally stunned, like there's no way he's ever seen a weapon like this before, and he's stuck in his own head as he thinks. Izu blurts out that it isn't magic at all. It's just the toy staff she made for her back when she was little, and she swears it somehow grew into what they're looking at right now, which Derek gets totally thrown for a loop. He can't stop asking why every weapon he crafts just keeps transforming into something this wild. But he cuts the small talk and demands what she wants to discuss. So Izu starts spilling everything that's been going down at the academy, and she says that they're going all in on hardcore research into the holy attribute right now, because Derek is the one who forged the staff. She asks if he'll share his pro-opinion on the whole mess, and Derek doesn't even, and he promises he'll gladly step in to help. And Izu's face lights up as she thanks him right then, Milital. She blurts out that she's actually started getting really hooked on the holy attribute lately too. She's got 0 missions on her plate right now, so she begs to tag along and just watch, and Izu nods, saying they should bolt back to the academy right now. So Derek tells them, wait a sec, and bolts off to grab his hammer. Izu fires the Saint's power. Boom, teleport triggers, and the three of them get swallowed by blazing light as they warp out. Someone makes a quick call, and right on cue, they pop up in front of a colossal estate to prove they've arrived. Milito can't stop staring at how breathtaking the grounds look, while Derek just stands there soaking it all in. Izu finally brings them to the Glossum Magic Academy, an absolute palace of glittering fountains and pure wow factor. Derek clutches his massive hammer tight as they start to push inside, but Izu steps in and stops him cold, saying they've got to pay their respects to the headmaster first. They burst into a swanky office, and a woman behind a huge desk greets them like she's been waiting. She locks eyes with them and introduces herself, Alina Grossa, the headmaster of the entire academy. Milito greets her like, "It's been forever," and Alina nods along, admitting they haven't seen each other in ages. Derek introduces himself as Durate, and the second he says it's a pleasure to meet her, doubt hits because something tells him they've met before. Alina locks eyes with the crew and declares that Derek is the one who forged the holy attribute weapon. Then she wastes no time. She goes straight to the point and demands he step in to help the Academy's research into that power. Izu cuts in with a jaw-dropper. The headmaster isn't just some official. She's the queen's younger sister. And that's when everything shifts. And it all clicks in Derek's head, because suddenly he finally sees just how terrifyingly high the stakes really are. Alina flashes a smile, keeps it honest, and says she's kind to people who crush their jobs, but she has zero patience for losers. So she demands big results, and her words keep trailing on. They roll out of Derek, still rattled to the core, but they barely get going before someone yells that Izu is in trouble. It's Vice Principal Bayer, and he's snapping fast. He's yelling at Izu for not spotting him first, then steaming over the fact that she brought Derek along. Bayer lunges right up in his face and blasts him with shouting rage, demanding how a nobody like him is even allowed anywhere on those grounds, and that nonstop screaming is so brutal. Derek just clamps his hands over his head, feeling a massive headache charge right up. Then it all turns physical, right when a hand shoots out and clamps down on someone's arm. Derek whips his head around. There's Izu, pale and shaking with pure terror. Then someone screams her name, and turns out Bayer hooked her arm and yanked her up off the ground, even while she kept yelling at him to let go. He leans in so close to her face it's unsettling, his creepiness shooting through the air as he grills her about whether she's really trying to defy her own vice principal. Izu snaps back that his job title won't let him do whatever he wants right as Derek charges in and snatches the guy. Bayer flips out, completely screaming that he's the living embodiment of all the Academy's wisdom, and then slamming her with the line that she should be ashamed. Derek clamps down on the guy's arm, yells that he better finally stop hassling Izu, and right then Bayer throws in the towel, begging to be released. Derek tries to blurt out something else, but Bayer is already sprinting for his life like he needs to escape right this second. The whole ordeal drains Derek until he's slumped there, hammer in hand, utterly wiped out. As he barrels through the doors, Bayer snaps back, screaming that his running away is actually brilliant advice, telling himself. He finally peeled off from the group, marched straight through the gates, and put distance between himself and that weirdo. Milito shoots Izu a worried look, asking if she's okay after that whole disaster, while Derek presses her to tell him whether she's brought it up with the headmaster yet. Derek tells her to call for help anytime. Milito swears they've got her covered, and Izu quietly thanks them with a grateful nod. She opens her mouth to spill the truth, then slaps on a bright smile and tells them she's doing just fine, like nothing's wrong, even with a sad look, she just turns away like she's already used to people treating her like that, leaving Derek and Milito frozen in dead silence, and all while she had to swallow the worst of it and feel completely miserable. Izu suddenly clapped her hands shut to snap out of it, saying it was time to move, and she leans in and tells Derek, "Don't worry, I'm about to introduce you to every student as Lord Delete." She's glowing with excitement now, telling him the whole academy's been dying to meet him, so she strides ahead toward the auditorium, and Malatil snaps that they need to get moving right now. Derek was flexing his insane lineup of legendary weapons magic swords, and even his own massive hammer. In that huge auditorium, Izu steps onto the stage and calls out to the entire crowd, saying she's got someone she can't wait to introduce. She turns to the stunned students and blurts that the man standing beside her is the very same guy who forged her magic wand. And the moment she says it, everything changes, making the room. As Izu introduces him as Master Derek, The room erupts in whispering, and he just fumbles out this painfully awkward, nervous hello. But the students aren't buying a word of it. They're huddled together, whispering that he's just some old nobody who doesn't look important in the slightest. Even Derek can't deny it to himself. He knows they're right, because he's not exactly looking dignified right now. Izu barrels forward and tells everyone he's already forged a mountain of holy weapons, like the huge hammer he's lugging around, and she swears he even forged the sword used by Little, the army's commander, who steps up right then. He yanked her blade free and held it up to the whole room, grinning as it caught the light and flashed like pure craftsmanship. The students totally lose it, staring at that weapon in stunned disbelief, because there's no way they just saw something this high quality leaving. Little stood there, chest out, flashing that proud smile, and she couldn't help but feel damn good about how everyone was reacting. The students start shouting at Izu, begging him to let Derek actually forge a weapon, because if they see it for real, all those wild tales about holy weapons will finally feel true. Izu glances back at them, then admits their request actually makes perfect sense. She turns to Derek and asks if he's in, telling him the smithy's already set up and every material's sitting there ready. Derek grins and says, it's totally no trouble. So since they're stuck in a magic academy, he decides to stop hesitating and try his hand at forging a staff. The entire class erupts into cheers, buzzing with pure hype because a real master blacksmith is about to forge his magic right in front of them. Meanwhile, the vice principal's office is getting way less hype, where Bayer's losing it completely. He's stomping around, snapping at Derek, and yelling that he hates violence while accusing everyone else of being coward. He dramatically thrusts his arm up, grumbling that it's burning red and aching like crazy after their earlier clash. He doesn't stop there. He goes right on ranting, furious that Izu had the nerve to turn down his invitation, throwing a huge tantrum in front of some guy in a suit who's clearly fed up with all this chaos. Like, what am I even supposed to do about any of it? Bayer stands in the middle of the office, frozen in shock, one hand clutching his face like he just saw a ghost, and the suited tall guy tells him to calm down and do nothing for now. And Bayer clears his throat, trying to play it cool after the panic, even letting out a little grunt to save face. He marches in like he's paying rent, barks that he needs fresh clothes, and makes sure Bayer gets the message he only wears the top-tier brands. Bayer's sweating bullets, staring at this dude like, do I really have to deal with this? The guy snaps, asking what's wrong with Bayer and where he's supposed to sleep. So Bayer tells him, I'll get your clothes, then casually drops that he's putting him up in the academy dorm's special guest suite. He's totally obsessed with it, practically bragging that this is the fancy, high-class treatment a guy like him deserves. He says he'll miss the stables a little, and that totally messes with Bayer because there's this clear memory of the guy sleeping in the hay with horses. But this dude won't shut up. He keeps flexing how his circle of powerful friends is growing bigger by the day. Bayer wears that smug grin and tells him, dead serious, that he should feel lucky he didn't just meet anyone. He got to cross paths with someone as important as him. The two of them burst into laughter like they've been best friends forever. And after that earlier meltdown, it finally looks like Bayer's in a good mood again. The agent stood there holding her breath, and when the guys barged in, they called out to the tall, suited guy, telling him she'd been waiting for him to arrive. Bayer presents her as his personal secretary, and that tall suit guy instantly gets smitten, blurting nonstop about how gorgeous she is, while Bayer clung to the real reason he hired an outsider woman, keeping it locked inside his chest because the academy would explode if they ever found out. The suit guy starts buttering up Bayer, leaning in close and swearing the whole world is blind for not seeing just how amazing he is. Agent just stands there, staring dead ahead with a totally blank face like none of their explanations are even landing. Bayer devours every last bit, cheeks burning as he blurts out that his agent is the only one who truly gets what he's worth. He gets way too hyped, grabs at her to drag her to the bed, blurts that she's his ideal woman, and then she snaps, wait, and everything cuts off right there. And she jabs his nose, grinning, telling him he'll get her as soon as the job's done, because the longer he waits, the sweeter the payoff. Bayer's caught hook, line, and sinker. He drops everything, puts the job first, and practically beams because they're finally thinking the same way. The agent snaps back into full serious mode and drops one last crucial detail they have to nail before their plans can move forward. The agent makes it crystal clear. Her plan doesn't stop here because she's coming for Derek next, and she wants him gone for good. Bayer's totally bought in, flashing that massive creepy grin, while the tall suited guy just freezes there, like he's seconds away from a full-on heart attack. Agent brings up how Derek crushed her Bayer's pride back then, back when he was still just messing around at the academy, making it all look way too easy while everyone stared as he worked, and to her, what he did was a huge insult she couldn't swallow. And he's decided the only way to set things right is to trade his life for it. While Derek stays completely clueless, with the target stamped right on his back, Bayer's face lights up with pure excitement. She erupts into cheers and orders her to get everything ready for the move right now. An agent tells him she's already one step ahead and offers to show him the setup right now, catching him off guard for a moment. Bayer starts trembling with pure adrenaline, whispering through his breath that the moment he's been waiting for is finally here. Agent just stands there, stone still, wearing a dead dark stare like she's hiding a plan so much worse than anything she's showing. They drop down into the basement, and the suit guy can't wrap his head around just how huge the room is, while on the table, a magic circle quietly waits for them. The agent tells Bayer that the day he finally becomes king is right around the corner. Then Bayer fires back that soon she'll be queen too, and without hesitation, she agrees. The suit guy spun his head around the room, and right then he realized, sure, the place was enormous, but the interior design was a total mess. Bayer shoots an intense stare, hisses in a whisper that he's going through with it. He's about to seize control of the entire country. He starts going off, insisting he's way too massive for that job, and saying he's never going to be the type to feel fulfilled just being a vice principal. His plan is to yank the strings inside the Magic Academy and spark a coup, then grab the throne the moment the nation falls apart, leaving him with everything he wants. He puts himself in charge of everything, then cackles because the academy is packed with talented kids he can pull like pawns. And that's when he convinces himself his whole scheme is flawless. Agent waves him over like, "Come here, I've got it," and finally reveals the exact item they'd been hunting this whole time. Aranka's Darkness Power Stone, an elite dark element prize, radiating eerie energy and glowing like it's alive right there in front of them. Bayer is completely hooked, praising it as a beautiful jewel and swearing that this dark power is the one thing they absolutely need to make their plan work. He watches her stride past the stones, and the thought hits him hard. This is the second big reason he hired Aegon with him around. Getting items like this is actually possible. Bayer locks eyes on the stone, totally clueless how Agent ended up with it. But one thing's clear, she's his lifeline, the one who saved him by bringing it. The agent screams at Bayer to smash the jewel and steal that dark power for himself. But Bayer just freezes in place, staring off like he's thinking, he should play it safe, so he strides onto the platform, just in case trouble strikes, while he pushes Sinyan to step up and unleash his power to smash that jewel, and Sinyan grins, ready to do exactly that. Sinyan snatches the dark stone and strains with every ounce of strength, trying to crush it in his bare hands. Bayer watches him flounder, chuckles under his breath, and thinks, what a fool does he really believe plain brute strength is going to be enough? And then, out of nowhere, the stone begins to split, cracking open and flinging shards of the dark jewel in every direction. Sinyan screams, I finally did it. And right as that massive dark energy cloud starts spilling out and it starts wrapping around him, he shouts for the power to crash into his body as Bayer watches stunned while the dark energy gets sucked right in. Energy whips through the air like a storm, and Sinyan's face tightens with panic like something's gone completely off the rails. Bayer just stands there glowing while he drinks in that energy, grinning like crazy as he blurts out how incredible this power feels. Agent grinned at him and told Mr. Bayer the display was absolutely magnificent. That suited guy just stands there, totally clueless, while everyone else scrambles. Someone says it's probably best to leave that idiot alone. Bayer bursts into a fierce chant, begging the darkness to hand him full control, then shouts, Dark, manipulate, at the top of his lungs to slam the spell into motion. Dark energy surges and jagged black shards explode up out of the floor. Derek steps up and shows the academy students the staff he just finished crafting. Milatil and Izu stare at him, both of them totally blown away. The kids swarm around Derek, buzzing with pure excitement as they can't wait to see what he made. A student blurts out, So what holy affinity hits hardest? And Derek pauses for a heartbeat, then snaps back, Fire and lightning. And he also makes it crystal clear, non-attribute is super simple. so it's way easier for anyone to deal with. Derek wraps up his lesson, turns to the kids and asks if anyone has questions. Then a strange noise cuts him off mid-sentence. He whips around, and pure shock floods his face because just one of the students straight up collapses. Derek rockets over, grabs the kid, and asks if he's okay, but the boy can barely speak before a painful groan rips out of him. Derek grips the kid tight and demands where it hurts, but the second he asks, the boy goes stone silent. And then Derek spots it instantly and screams as a hulking black shadow surges upward behind the kid like a towering wall. The entire room spirals into panic, Milital shouting for a doctor while Izu screams, "Derek, be careful!" That creepy black mist crawls in and spreads across the floor, and somebody screams, "What the hell is this even?" While Izu's processing what's going on, she blurted out a warning and she can feel a massive wave of dark magic hanging in the air. The shadows slither across the ground, stretching like living chains until they pin everyone in place where they stand. Derek and the crew suddenly realize they're trapped right in the middle of the room because that dark energy is closing in on them from every single side. The classroom's empty, now every student is gone, and the ones left just stand there with dead, blacked-out eyes. As Derek grinds his teeth, pure stress hits him hard while he tries to wrap his head around how fast everything spiraled out of control. Izu bursts ahead of the group, shouting at Derek and Milital to stay right on her heels. She shouts her Scientia barrier boom. A giant dome of glowing light slams into place, sealing them inside, and she is shutting the fog out. Derek tells Izu, "Thanks for the save," while Milital stares at the kids like, "What in the world is happening to you guys?" Izu watches the wandering students and blurts out that dark magic has fully hijacked their minds. She declares the three of them are still standing only because their weapons are packed with holy power. Derek nods. Light and dark are pure opposites, and Milital finally snaps, realizing she can't just go swinging at the kids without thinking first. Milital yells at Derek to stay back, but Izu fires back this time. They're going to use Milital's power for real. Izu shoots her hand down to her belt and yanks out a charm, ready to unleash whatever comes next. The Saint's Spirit clone spell hits bam, and glowing copies of Milital start materializing everywhere in a flash. Derek just stands there, frozen in shock, staring at the crowd like, how are there this many militants running around right now? Izu tells them the clones can stall the students, so use every second to hunt down the wizard behind the mind control. She fires off her magic to track them down, but the signal gets slammed. Her detection gets blocked, and she pulls up with absolutely zero hit. Outside, a colossal magic barrier snaps across the whole academy, sealing them off from the entire world. Izu stares down at her staff, biting her silence, looking straight up devastated because she can't get a lock on the enemy. Milital blurts out, "So what do we do next?" And right after Izu's search flops again, Derek grits his teeth and says they'll have to check every inch on foot. The three of them burst into a full sprint down the hallway, kicking off their search of the school together. Izu blurts out an apology for not being stronger, but Derek shuts her down fast. None of this is her fault, right? When Milital spots someone up ahead, Milital squints at a guy posted by the door, clutching a plate of food, and blurts out, "Wait, is that Shinyan?" The guy just keeps humming like everything's fine. No creepy black mist in sight. So Derek instantly knows he's not mind-controlled. Milital asks what's wrong, and Izu swears he's just bringing food, like he must be delivering something for that dark magic user Derek talked about. As they stare, a monstrous black void rips open right through the hallway wall, like the world just split in half, though it might. It makes Milital blurt out in shock, because the guy just vanishes straight into the stone. The dark portal snaps shut in a blink, and the hallway suddenly looks like it was never touched at all. Derek won't just stand around. He leans in and pushes the girls to go check that spot up close. He demands to know what's going on, and Milital insists it's just like any other wall. Then Izu steps in and tells them to back off and leave it to her. Izu slams her hand against the stone and yells, "Scientia reveal," and a massive magic circle lights up like it's about to blow the place wide open right there on the ground. Derek Milital just stood there watching her work like a hawk, waiting to see if she could really crack away inside. Suddenly, that pitch-black doorway tears open again, and Izu bursts out in pure joy, yelling that it finally opened for them. Derek shoots a look at Izu and says, "This is exactly what I expected from a head instructor at the academy." Izu charges up the stairs, waving them on like, "No doubt our main hideout is just up ahead." Inside the room, Vice Principal Bear is gorging himself on meat and chewing like he owns the place. He tells the suit guy the steak was a great touch, but the guy shuts him down and tells Bear he's stuck paying the bill. Their lunch gets smashed to pieces when a booming voice yells at them to knock it off. Then the whole vibe stops, slams both of them to a halt, and they whip around like, "Wait, who's crashing this party?" Izu steps right up, calls out the dark magic she senses, and demands to know if Bear is the one puppeteering the students. Milittle wastes zero time, straight up telling Bayer, "Let those kids go right now." Bayer snaps that the guy is a total idiot for missing the intruders, and the suit guy just blasts him to shut up after he already went through all that trouble to haul food in. Bayer's had it, so he launches a dark arrow spell and nails the suit guy for being loud and unbearable. The suit guy is frozen in shock, staring like he can't even process it. He never expected things to spiral this fast, and then, before he can even twitch, Militol blasts him through the doorway. With a single strike, he screams as he slams into the wall, as he just lies there on the floor, completely knocked out, done for. Bayer snaps at everyone, saying they've already pushed way too far. But Izu won't back down. She tells her there's no escape left. Bayer's early push is so relentless that he finally cracks. He admits his crimes, drops his act, and surrenders. But Bayer shuts that down instantly. He screams that he won't stand for this, and that he's going to seize the whole country for himself. He starts hoarding that sick, dark energy in his hand. Eyes blazing, completely unhinged, he roars a command, and his dark golems spring to motion. Then the massive rocks suddenly start screeching, grinding across the floor, and smashing into each other with a brutal crash. 3 giant stone monsters erupt from the ground, towering over everyone like living nightmares. Izu's jaw drops at their insane size, but Bayer just smirks and brags that they're specially made and damn near impossible to bring down. Bayer stood towering between his giant stone golems and started tossing out creepy demands, warning the group that if they lost, they'd have to drag themselves to his room, straight up freak show energy. Even though Izu doesn't look the least bit shaken, she just unsheathes her blade and tells him, cool as ice, that he's done for because her sword can cut through literally anything. She darts like a blur, yelling her purple lightning technique. Then the golems explode into a million glittering pieces. Those giant stone monsters finally collapse, crashing into harmless rocks that tumble onto the floor. But the battle's far from finished. Derek grips his hammer, roars out a challenge, and right as he's about to swing, Izu cuts in. Now it's time for your special move. Right when they think it's over, a filthy wave of dark smoke starts blasting out of the shattered stones on the ground. Bayer bursts into that disgusting laugh of his, bragging that he warned them he wouldn't go down that easily. He swears he's been using dark magic to supercharge himself, then boom, an entire army of golems erupts behind him, smashing the value of every attack that came before. Milittle and the others look utterly wrecked right now. Isu snaps that these things are literally multiplying, turning the whole situation into a full-on nightmare they can't escape. Derek cranes his neck at the fresh wave of monsters, and when he realizes what's off, he starts to speak before the fear can catch up. Derek spots a familiar vibe in the golem. Same creepy black glow they saw when they fought the Iron Bear, and it hits him fast as everything clicks together. Quick. He snaps his head back and yells at Izu and Milittle to lock in their focus because he instantly figures out the perfect way to win, then screams that the one weak spot in every single golem is staring straight back at you in the eyes. Bayer looks completely shaken as his secrets spill out. He's sweating hard, clicking like he's on the edge of losing his cool, but Izu and Milittle don't waste a single heartbeat. Roger erupts from both of their mouths, and they sprint at full speed straight for the monsters, while Bayer completely snaps in the back, roaring at his golems to surge in and slaughter everyone right this second. Milittle rockets skyward, yells the name of her god thrust, then crashes back down on them with a savage impact. And she follows that move with a savage combo, cracking the golem's thick stone armor wide open with every hit. On the other side, Izu snaps into position, starts powering up her Scientia move with laser focus as she fires a lance that slices through the golems in one brutal hit, smashing straight into the weak spots Derek had just warned her about. Derek won't let the girls steal the spotlight. He snaps and yells that he's jumping into the fight too. As the golem's eye ignites with that eerie glow, Derek rockets up into the air with a fierce yell, ready to slam the hammer down and send everything crashing as he drops. And he swings the massive tool with everything he's got, crashing into the target so hard that it leaves the air ringing so hard that the moment the blow lands, the air literally seems to shatter under the raw, unstoppable power. And just like that, the golem shattered down into a pile of useless rocks scattered in the dirt. Melittle, Derek, and Izu tower over the wreck like an unstoppable powerhouse squad. Seriously, it's that intense, which makes Bear completely lose his mind. He's trembling like a leaf, barely able to force a single word out. Melittle gives him zero mercy, stares him down dead in the eyes, declares it's over, and Derek leans in and tells the vice principal straight up, "Your best move is to give up right now." Melittle locks eyes with him and flat out declares that his ridiculously dumb takeover plan to seize the country is officially dead. Bayer totally snaps, stammering that it's all lies as he tries to flex his vice principal title, and he keeps trembling, whining like his entire hard-earned grind is getting smashed by a bunch of fools. He refuses to quit lurking in the shadows. He starts muttering that he'll never accept this, and Derek, Melittle, and Izu all snap, still staring in pure shock at what's unfolding in front of them. Because Bayer isn't just changing, he's transforming right in front of everyone, sprouting massive wings and a horn like a full-on freak out of a nightmare. He stares at his own claws and blurts, "This is incredible," as wild power surges through him like it's about to explode. They can't even process what they're seeing, and one person yells, "What the hell is going on?" As Izu finally clocks the nightmare, she blurts out that the vice principal has been completely devoured by dark magic. He's transforming into a full-on half-demon right there, cackling like he owns the world and swearing that nobody can stop him now. Derek and the girls just freeze there, stunned out of their minds by the freakish monster Bayer has turned into the... He rockets into the air, boasts that he'll seize the country, then flips on a dime and declares he's taking over the whole world. Izu jolts back into the moment first, screaming at Derek and Militol to watch their backs because whatever's happening just got brutally more dangerous. Bayer roars for the king as a hulking pillar of dark energy blasts out of him. But Militol won't let this moment just sit there and watch. She surges forward, slamming her blade into the demon's power, and sparks explode everywhere in a blinding flash as dared Izu to look on and tried to keep up with how brutally fast the fight was moving. Militol keeps her head down, goes stone-focused, and whispers Godspeed as she braces to smash through an end. She yanks off a wild swallow reversal, clobbering Bayer with a storm of hits before he even gets a chance to react. Izu spots her opening, whips her staff up, and unleashes a brutal wave of light magic to finish it right as the moment cuts off. And she unleashes a Saintia strike bam. A giant, blazing, glowing fist crashes into the demon and launches him screaming through the air. Bayer slams into a brutal hit across the face, coughing up spit as the impact rattles his entire head. The blast hits with a brutal kick, hurling him across the room like a rag doll, and until he crashes into the stone wall, collapses to the floor, and leaves a spider web of cracks blooming through the masonry behind him. Derek, Milittle, and Izu just stood there, jaws dropped, staring in disbelief at how that fight flipped on a dime. But the shock doesn't quit. Bayer grits his teeth and drags himself back up. Like that, hit barely even landed. He tilts his chin up with a vicious grin, like he's daring the world to test him because he's got plenty of fight left in him. Izu loses it, demanding to know why holy attacks won't touch that demon, and Bayer just shrugs it off, saying it's actually pretty simple. He starts bragging that his dark magic trounces every holy weapon they've got then, right as he's gloating. He cuts himself off mid-sentence, groans hard, and a strange bolt of energy crackles through the air. Bayer roars at the top of his lungs as a brutal, massive dark spike tears out of nowhere, slamming him into the earth. Izu yells that a second horn is sprouting on his left side, and he panics because if it keeps growing like this, he's never going to turn back into a human. She's totally panicking, screaming that she can't even fathom the catastrophe that'll hit if he finally goes full demon. Milittle snaps that they've got to shut this down before the transformation rips any deeper. But Izu shoots back that if they don't slow it down right now, they may not even keep him alive. Derek just stands there staring at it all, feeling like one wrong move could decide life or death in seconds. He can't stop thinking, even though he never liked Bayer, and he knows messing with people like this is wrong, but he still can't bear the idea of Bayer turning into a monster. At the end of the day, Derek sees the truth. This guy is still a person, and he can't stop believing that someday he'll flip his whole life around. So Derek doesn't just want to drop him. He decides he's going to do more than beat the guy. He snaps his gaze to Militol and tells her, plain and loud, they're not just here to take him on, they're here to save Vice Principal Bayer. Militol and Izu stare at him, utterly blindsided by what he just dropped. Militol just smirks and says it's exactly like him, and Izu goes completely charged, ready to yank that guy out of the demon's grip. The group clocks it instantly. One crushing hit to Bayer is the only way to rip him out of that demon transformation. But the vice principal is already vanished in chaos, shrieking for them to die, while someone else yells, "Split up!" And the whole place scrambles to move. Izu steps up, grips her staff, and snaps to the others that she's going to unleash magic to trap him so he can't move an inch. Derek and Militol grab the signal and sprint straight at the monster while it's still distracted, praying their plan actually lands. Izuku's capture hits. Bayer's body gets yanked midair as glowing white chains snap tight around him. With the target locked in place, Militol and Derek surge forward in total harmony, unleashing their deadliest combined assault. Both of them poured every last ounce of power into one crushing strike, screaming at the monster to take it. Militol rips into action, unleashing her catastrophic cut as Derek's heavy hammer crashes down, smashing the demon like there's no tomorrow. Then a chilling laugh crawls out of the smoke, and Bayer's voice snaps that they've pushed way past the line too close for comfort. Izu spots danger rushing in and shrieks at the top of her lungs, begging them to get out of there now. Bayer unleashes a brutal dark spike that tears through the air so powerful it snaps the glowing chains, pinning him like paper, launching him, ending with sharp black energy tearing through the air. Yet Izu still manages to shout, "Saintia!" and a blazing shield snaps up in time, shielding Derek and Militol. Izu looks absolutely relieved as she clutches her magic orb, beaming that she got the barrier up just in time to stop them. Derek gets impaled, then whips his gaze to her and tells her she just saved his life. Both of them gasping for breath for a brief, stunned second. The monster won't let up. Bayer's shadowy form drifts in the air above them, and now it looks less like a person and more like a full-on demon. Derek realizes his hits are landing like nothing because that aura is way too thick. Then Izu blurts out that his magic has already shifted from human into... She flat out turns him demonic, and she says this shift makes him immune to the holy attribute, once his worst weakness, leaving him out of reach. Derek stood frozen in shock. Then he muttered weakness to himself like he'd just cracked a terrifying truth. He clamps down on his hammer handle even harder, whispering to himself that this time finally he's got it, because it turns out he was so locked on elemental types and magic logic that he completely missed the real way to take that guy down. Derek planted his feet and clutched his hammer, shouting that he can finally spot their weaknesses. It's not just magic, it is the real materials that build the monster's body from the ground up. He glares at the floating demon and blasts, the vice principal's real weakness is his heart. And then while Bayer just sneers at them, acting like he's untouchable and flawless, like nobody could ever catch a single crack. The monster hovers over them, then erupts in a scream insisting there's no weakness for someone like him. Izu wastes zero time. He slams the Saint's sun pillar straight into him, and the demon screams about how unbearable they are. Militol snaps into action, shouting Blue Heaven's move as she lunges forward, and it all crashes. She whips it into a follow-up strike and blasts Setsuna straight into the monster, so hard he screams in pain. The demon gets slammed backward, suspended in midair, looking totally rattled, and right then, Militol whips his head back to Derek and shouts, "Make your move!" Izu yells for Derek to end that guy once and for all, and right then, Derek cranked up a brutal swing with his hammer, shouting the vice principal's name at the top of his lungs as he fought to snap him back into being human. The hammer slams down, exploding into a blinding burst of light that swallows the whole room, and when the glare finally dies, Derek staggers in place, wheezing through his breath. All right, we've got to get everything back to normal, finally. Militol and Izu flung up their shields, squinting against the storm of dust and debris blasting through the air like it wanted to blind them as the smoke finally starts to thin out from the heart of the blast. They spot Bayer crumpled on the ground, fully knocked out, military points wiped, the horns gone, and for the first time, He's finally human again. Milital tells Derek she knew his strike would hit like a monster. Then Derek shrugs it off, and Izu starts scanning the floor like she's hunting for something. And while she keeps hunting, Milital suddenly shouts her name, and Derek leans in, asking if she's after something specific. Right then, wham, a heavy footstep slams onto the stone floor, and everyone freezes mid-breath. Derek dropped to his knees, scanning the floor like a detective, muttering that it felt like he'd just stepped on something. He snatches up a tiny object and demands what it is, and the second he does, Izu's eyes lock on it instantly. Izu bursts in hot and begs Derek to let her see it, and her wild energy makes him stumble back in surprise. As she raises the shard in her hand, it clicks in her mind this isn't just any piece. It's a cracked fragment of a dark attribute jewel, and she's staring at the proof. Milital blurts out, "Why would something like that be here?" And Izu shoots back, "Because that's exactly why the vice principal turned into a demon." They lock eyes on unconscious Bayer, because there's no way he doesn't know exactly where that jewel came from. Milital decides the only way out is pure magic. He digs through his own memories to hunt down the truth, but then out. Right outside the building, someone is already bolting for the exit. It's the agent, and as she vanishes into the trees, she seethes under her breath, cursing Derek the whole way. She's seething because her plans are crumbling, and Derek keeps bulldozing his way in at every single turn. The agent trudges through the woods by herself, and lately it feels like every plan she's made is crumbling the moment she exhales. Even with her special status, she realizes this time she's not getting off easy because the master plan just smashed headfirst into a brutal wall. And with her energy drained to the bone, she can't stop wondering if the only thing waiting for her at the end of this nightmare is death. She keeps pushing forward, chanting to herself that she has to reach her group first. Then suddenly she freezes in mid. Something slams into her mind and she whips her head around, eyes blown wide with pure helpless shock because as Izu rockets out of the trees, she lands right in front of her, blocking every single escape route. The agent locks eyes with her, and she knows if this girl has found her, then things are way uglier than she ever imagined. She fires back, asking what kind of business Izu could possibly have with her. Then he shrugs and drops the wild truth that they've already sifted through Bear's memories. So Izu raises the dark fragment and confronts her, saying, "We watched you hand that jewel to the vice principal, and then you turned him into a demon." The agent drops his gaze and calls out for agent, asking Bear if he's really sure his own mind isn't pulling the strings and lying to him. The agent realizes Izu knows way too much her name, the jewel fragments, everything. And when the truth hits, she admits she can't talk her way out of this one. She tries to play it cool, saying she's in a rush and needs to leave. But Izu shuts that down fast and tells her, right to her face, she's not going anywhere. Derek just freezes in full shock, then someone yells his name as the tension in the woods snaps at the edge. And when the agent clenches her teeth, she pins every screw-up of her mission lately on Derek like it's all his fault. She snaps at Izu to stop pretending, but the moment Izu asks what she's really trying to achieve, the agent shuts it down, deciding that talking is pointless. As Izu wonders why she's there at all, the agent's hand snaps to her sword, ready to cut this down fast. She rockets forward in a flash, cutting straight to Izu and saying, "I'm about to die, so the details don't matter anymore." Derek lunges and screams Izu's name, panicked that someone's about to slice her down before she even has a chance to react. The agent smirks, already calling it a win. She's convinced mages are totally helpless the moment they even start chanting their spell. Izu blurts out her Saint Shalak spell, and before that agent can even finish her sentence, glowing ropes lasso her up tight. The agent freezes in total shock, blurting, "Did Izu just use chantless magic?" And Izu only smiles, calmly explaining that Derek's staff is the real reason she can cast without speaking at all. And the agent clenches her jaw, insists it's far from over, and under her breath she mutters Derek's name like it's a promise. Izu stares down at her and basically tells her to quit already, because it's obvious she's already lost this fight. The agent snaps she's right, but her body won't obey. She can't even lunge far enough to grab her hidden knife, so she finally has to swallow the truth she really got beaten by some nobody, while Izu just nods along, seal the deal quiet, confirming it's over. Then the agent cuts in and drops the bombshell. There's one brutal, fatal reason she lost, and Izu just can't help wondering what that reason could be. She finally admits that her worst mistake wasn't the choice, it was trusting the wrong people, because she completely misread who they really were. She never thought her boss, Bayer, could be this unbelievably incompetent at his job. But there's a catch still waiting to bite. She flashes a chilling grin and whispers that her crew, the gathering of reason, is eternal, and nothing on earth can ever wipe them out. Darrett and Izu just froze on the spot, totally blindsided because they never saw things going like this, and a huge celebration bursts through the forest, and the booming cheers send birds scattering into the sky as the news races from one ear to the next. He sprinted all the way to the royal palace, where the sun blazed over the sky-high castle towers. A massive crowd packed the grounds outside the palace, all staring up at the balcony, screaming and cheering with everything they had. And up on that balcony, Queen Serenade stands tall with Militul and the rest of the crew, locks eyes with Darrett, and boldly calls him Lord Durati. She flashes him a huge, real smile and tells him, "Thank you so much for saving the Academy from all that evil stuff," but she isn't finished. She snaps that he's not just some random dude who can forge holy weapons. He's got the gift to wield them too. As the students erupt into cheers and claps, the Queen leans in and tells him his knack for spotting enemy weak points and his character overall are absolutely unreal. Darrett squirms under all that praise, but the Queen shuts it down fast, making it crystal clear he's a blacksmith like no one else in this whole era. Darrett just grins back and tells the Queen he's not even worried, he's thrilled she'd say something so kind. Alina Grossa makes it official. She's naming Darrett as a special instructor at Glossa Academy of Magic. Darrett bows to the headmaster, grinning as he says, he'll be a blacksmith, couldn't feel prouder than he does right now. Milital breaks into a huge smile, blurting out that she's just thrilled he's finally getting the credit he's been owed. Izu says his life's about to go way into overdrive, so don't forget, make sure you thank both of them for all that support. Staring out at the view, Darrett finally admits the only reason he's still standing here today is because everyone who helped him, and then he pauses. But Milital won't take no for an answer. He insists everyone should be the ones thanking him. Darrett starts to squirm, admitting it feels like way too heavy a burden, and then boom, the Queen jumps in and speaks up. Queen Serenade tells him she wants to thank him one last time up close, in her own way, and just as a servant steps in with a tray, she pleads with Darrett to take a special gift because it's their heartfelt thanks. She shoots her hands straight up into the sky. He shouted Serena Gloss's name to honor Darrett, the hero who stepped in and saved their entire country. The Queen declares she's handing him the Hammer of Glossa, this huge honor that proves once and for all he's the finest blacksmith in the entire kingdom. As they step onto the balcony, the whole crowd down below erupts like a stadium, screaming and losing their minds for them. Darrett lifts the new hammer high, and that silver metal practically glints like it's on fire in the sun. Every kid in that crowd is screaming his name, shouting thanks for stepping up and defending their country like a hero. One kid shouts that he wants to grow up just like him, and another kid fires back that he's basically a hero for every middle-aged guy who's ever felt unseen. Later on, the Queen leans in and tells Darrett they've got a massive banquet waiting for him at the palace. Then he snaps back that he'd be honored to go. Melina Grosso strides up to the Queen while everyone else crowds back and watches in tense silence in the palm. The Queen locks eyes with Alina and flat out tells her, "I'm counting on you for what happens next." All right, now it's payback time for the ones who started all this chaos. Sinyan and Bayer are down on the ground trembling, while the Queen towers over them with a whip, all set to haul them straight to the dungeon. She finally halts and snaps that it's probably enough whipping for now, and Bayer just huddles on the floor, shaking with pure terror. Alina looms over the two failures and cracks her whip, declaring that with the Queen tied up, she's the one who will mete out their punishment now. She glares down at them like they're disgusting trash, furious that her own school produced someone this rotten. She absolutely tears into him, calling him pathetic for the way this giant fool somehow clawed his way up through their ranks. Then she snaps her eyes to Bayer and demands to know about his secretary, Agan, and the poor little guy starts trembling like he's about to blow apart. Turns out the files are finally in, and that woman, she wasn't just anyone, she was a top-tier member of a group called the Assembly of Reason. Bayer can barely even say the name, he just stammers it back. Like the moment it hits his ears, his entire world starts crumbling. Alina snaps to it, so that's why he kept that jewel of darkness, and then she calls it out. Ajan is the one who truly shoved the whole country into chaos. She pushes on, spilling the truth that woman wasn't just talking, she was building the pieces for a demon invasion. And Bayer was nothing more than a pawn getting pushed around. With her crimes towering over everything, Bayer realizes he's toast, so he scrambles across the floor to escape. But Alina isn't finished. She snaps her gaze to Sinyan, and he looks like he's watching his whole life play out before his eye. Alina grabs everyone's attention and warns them that shattering the legendary Amatsurugi almost always means a death sentence, so she keeps going, blasting Bayer for tossing the king's kindness aside just to cozy up to a bunch of shady buyers. She's officially cut ties with him, makes it crystal clear he's never getting another shot to risk the magic school or the kingdom again. But Sinyan refuses to go down easy. He jabs a finger in the air and screams that he's not the villain. He's just a victim who got played. He is sweating bullets, panicking hard, and scrambling to talk his way out of the disaster he caused. Alina doesn't buy a single excuse. She clamps down on her whip and tells them both it's time to get hit with their official punishment. She locks eyes with Bayer and declares, dead serious, that he's walking straight into prison then. Then she fixes her gaze on Sinyan and sentences him to rot for life in the underground mines, where the hard labor never ends. The truth finally hits them hard. Everything they thought their lives were is gone for good. Alina snaps at them to get up on their feet, and they can only beg and plead for some other punishment until the guards grab them and haul them away. Sinyan is losing his mind as the guards haul him off, sobbing that he'll never do it again, begging for forgiveness. Then he blurts, But Alina doesn't budge an inch. She tells him, if you're really apologizing now, then you shouldn't have ruined things in the first place. She's done with him for good, and she tells him he can rot in a cell for the rest of his life, replaying every mistake he made. Bayer's totally freaking out. He's yelling for the headmaster, demanding to know why they're not treating him like he's innocent. Right as the story cuts off with that, Solina makes it brutally clear there's no easy pass for him. She orders him to learn blacksmithing materials the hard way. No excuses. He pleads with the guards to hold up and hear him out. Then they grab him and shove him down the stairs anyway, right into the next part of the story. The pitch-black, cramped underground tunnel that feels like it's closing in on you. Deep in the caves, a bunch of miners are swinging their pickaxes and hauling mountains of rocks, working at full speed. As one worker is clearly enjoying the ride in his cart, his partner is getting hit with full-blown stress. Turns out Sinyan's right there with them, too shoved into hard labor and absolutely crushed by this new life. Down in the mines, things go from bad to worse when one worker screams at a guy who's just standing there and boom, it sets off a chaos that sends a mess overflowing everywhere. So this friendly miner just grins, throws out a "don't worry," and offers to lend the guy a hand with the work. The miner breaks into laughter and thumps Sinyan on the back like he's got a precious friend. But Sinyan snaps, "Stop hitting me," because he's absolutely miserable, grumbling that there isn't a single hint of beauty in a place like this. He's screaming at the top of his lungs about how he's trapped doing work in some filthy, disgusting hole. The other guys swarm in and try to snap him out of it, telling him to stop bottling everything up and to lean on them whenever anxiety hits. They swarm around him, swear they'll fix him up, and promise that if he sticks with them, that wicked heart of his will finally vanish. The lead miner fires him a massive thumbs up, shouting that Sinyan doesn't have to worry, every single person here is firmly in his corner. Sinyan just stands there trembling with rage, choking on every word as his cool slips away until finally, he just erupts into a scream, barking for them to cut it out and stop grabbing him without permission. The miner keeps grinning and tells Sinyan, "Don't worry, I'll help you fix that attitude." But Sinyan snaps back, "I hate people like you more than anything." As everything fades away, Sinyan starts freaking out. How long is he really going to be trapped under this deadline? He's spiraling in the dark, terrified this could be the end, like a life sentence might be waiting for him. The story cuts to a dazzling, fancy party noble guests who crowd around towering, decorated tables, laughing and digging into the festivities. Darrett's soaking it all in when, bam, someone yanks his attention with a shout from right behind him. A young girl tells him she'll work her head off just to catch up to his blacksmithing skills. And another kid chimes in that her dream is to one day cook with tools he forged. Derek panics, tries to play it cool, and insists he's just some old guy, but the kids aren't buying it because they think his humble act is the coolest thing ever. Mineta keeps firing off celebrity-style jokes, and right then Izu vows to grind twice as hard so she can do right by the staff he handed her. Milito finally tells Izu to stay safe, then squeezes in one last reminder how amazing it felt to see her again. Izu flashes a warm smile and tells Militol she's just as happy to see her again until that sweet moment gets cut short because as Militella starts giggling to herself, she can't stop thinking about how she finally has her teacher all to herself again. Except Izu flashes a polite smile and tells Derek, in no uncertain terms, that she's sticking by his side for a while. Derek and Militol totally snap, staring at her in full-on disbelief. Izu calmly tells him the headmaster gave her some time off, and she can't wait to spend every last second of it with him. Militol flashes a fake smile and says she's thrilled to hear that, while Izu locks eyes with her and refuses to let them stay alone together. Derek is stuck right in the middle of all that raw intensity, his nerves shredded as sparks literally fly between them. Right then, a kid in the crowd goes wild, waving both arms and screaming that the musketeers finally made it back. The moment the news hits the room, the entire party goes dead silent, and everybody turns their heads at once like the air just got heavier. Everybody starts whispering about how they crushed the Northern Stampede in only 1 month, mostly because their captain is so ridiculously strong, it doesn't even feel like a fair fight. Militol brings up the musketeers and drops the bombshell. These aren't just any soldiers. They're a brand new special unit built for the National Army. It's a crew that swaps swords for guns, and as they march through the streets, they're already drawing a crowd like it's the main event. Derek can't stop thinking about how fast everything's changing lately, but Izu's already one step ahead. He points at the captain standing right there and practically dares them to go say hi. The name Bayonet hits Derek like a spark. He freezes in place and claws at his memory, trying to pin down where he's heard it before. Suddenly, a voice bellows for the Lord Commander, and both Derek and Militol jerk hard like they got shocked. Grosso's musketeer unit holds its formation dead still, standing like a hard, no-nonsense war machine. A girl grins so wide it lights up the room, strides up, and declares, "We finally made it back from our mission." She snaps a salute to Militol and blasts out the report the stampede in the Toyu grasslands is finally wiped out, completely taken care of. And she's absolutely beaming proud that not one civilian or soldier got even a scratch the entire time. Derek nodded at her like a seal of approval, told her she did an amazing job, and warned her to get all the paperwork sitting on his desk by tomorrow morning. Bayonet stood there, trembling like a leaf, her face totally blank. Then Militol stepped in, clocked her mood, and asked what was going on. She suddenly snaps back to the moment, throws her head up, and yells for her papa, then beams like crazy while she tells him exactly how much she missed him. Derek's face flares bright red, and he totally snaps, shouting at her to stop calling him that in front of everyone, but she's already latched onto him, yanking him into a fight as he thrashes and yells for her to let go, while the others just stand there and stare at the wreckage. When the dust finally settles, she admits she never ever thought she'd run into her dad right there in the royal capital of all places. She keeps pushing, telling him he really should have warned her he was around, and Derek only manages a shaky, exhausted laugh. Looking back on it all, she realizes landing the National Army's exclusive blacksmith spot is a massive leap, and when she says it, he only shrugs, crediting everything to the people who stood beside him. He insists it wasn't only his own power that did the trick, and Bayonet bursts out laughing, calling it classic dad with that humble attitude. Just then a soldier strides up and calls for the captain. Derek snaps his head around, stunned, and instantly wonders who this new guy is. Bayonet decides it's time to yank him into the spotlight. She proudly announces to the other musketeers that this is her dad, Derek. Bayonet steps in and introduces Derek to the squad. He's her dad, and he's the blacksmith who forged the gun in her hands. She suddenly snatches someone by the arm and yanks him forward, making him blurt out a shocked, surprised yell as she starts hyping him up. She crowns him the squad's absolute rising star. She orders Derek to treat Luca with respect, their vice captain, and the second Luca hears it, he totally panics, blurting that being called a rising star is way too much. And Derek shakes his hand and slaps out his name, and Luca smiles and tells him it's truly an honor to finally meet him. Luca strides back to the line, falling into place beside the other musketeers. Derek points out just how many little kids are hanging around, and Bayonet snaps back that because guns are so new, they end up running on their own most of the time. She straight up admits that ever since the new tech hit, the rest of the National Army has been treating them like total rookies. Bayonet snaps that she's got to level up to be a better captain, But Derek fires back that she's already working her tail off, and Bayonet. And then a spark lights up in her eyes as she tells him she's got a massive favor to ask her papa, while Luca sits there, totally baffled, wondering what she's planning. Bayonet locks eyes with Derek and demands he fix Shinket. She needs him. Right now. She flashes a smile and tells him straight up, no one can fix it like her dad, and nobody else even comes close. It's the divine musket Shinket, an S-rank weapon packed with holy power. Derek froze in total disbelief, standing there wide-eyed and completely speechless as he stares at the gun and can't shake the thought. Was this really the very same thing he made? Bayonet flashes a wink and teases, asking if it sparks old memories, laughing about how her toy gun went from basic to badass. But Derek just stared down and snapped, I knew it. And Bayonet was left standing there, completely bewildered. He can't stop thinking maybe someday he'll finally crack the mystery of why his work keeps getting rewritten like this. Derek tells her he'll check the forge tomorrow and rip into the repairs fast, and she thanks him. Then Luca perks up and asks if they can come watch the repair, and Derek goes, yeah, totally, come on in. Derek just stands there grinning like crazy, soaking up the thought that the younger generation is finally taking real interest in his work. But the vibe flips the second Milital and Izu slide in right behind him, their faces carved with creepy shadowed looks. Milital looks like she's about to snap, and she tells him straight up, he's been way too happy for way too long. Then Izu flashes this chilling smile and asks, like he's testing the waters, so you really want to see Bayonet that badly? Derek starts panicking, sweating buckets as he flails his hands to get his point across. But Milital shuts him down immediately, flat out, insisting he's wrong, and that's not what's happening at all. Derek seizes his escape window, blurts out that he has to get ready for tomorrow, and then bolts into a full sprint. The girls get left behind as the story jumps to the next morning at the smithy, where the hammers are already ringing loud with pure energy. Bayonet, Milital, and Luca kick back together indoors, while Derek gets serious, plopping down at his bench to inspect the gun, step by step. He stares down the sights, gives a quick nod, and starts pinpointing every single thing he has to fix. While the action unfolds, the other guys are grinding nonstop, metal clanging on metal, and the shop stays roaring with every swing. Derek leans in over the rifle, spots the barrel bent just a little to the right, and asks Bayonet if her shots are drifting off. She admits she's felt it too, and has been forced to aim left just to land anything but. But Derek shouts out the real danger. Those mana engravings are grinding away, stealing her energy bit by bit, and Bayonet snaps to attention because she's been getting exhausted way faster in training lately, and Derek blurts that the whole weapon is basically shredding itself from sheer overuse. Then Bayonet shoots a look at Luca, wondering if the damage is really coming from how he fights with it, but Luca just freezes there, utterly lost, and repeats her words back like they make zero sense. He can't connect the dots at all. Bayonet shoots her hand out to explain herself. I'll show you exactly what I mean. So she rockets through the shop in a blur, leaving Luca totally stunned as she zips past him without warning. Before he even gets a breath in, she's got him pinned from behind gun barrel, jammed hard against his throat. And honestly, it looks badass. So go ahead, dare it, and watch as they step back, stunned with real awe on their face. Luca starts trembling and snaps at the captain that you can't scare him out of nowhere like that, but she waves it off, saying he's the one who shouldn't be acting shocked by her moves. She lets out a heavy sigh, grumbling that those standard guns are way too heavy, and she can't stop wishing the whole squad could move a little lighter on their feet. Derek waits until the sink is back to working order, then wastes no time. He's upgrading everyone's guns from top to bottom. And the entire squad erupts with excitement. Bayonet even shoots off a joking "Papa" and fires back his thanks. He tells them he's slipping out to grab everything he needs, and Bane calls out, "Be safe," just as he heads out the door. Luca just stands there, dead silent, looking utterly wrecked after everything that's just happened. Before long, the forge bursts to life, firing up and roaring like a monster with a massive flame roaring inside. Derek strides straight into the shop, plants himself at his bench, and starts yanking the long rifle apart piece by piece. He took his time, grabbed a little tool, and slowly popped out each tiny screw that kept the frame locked together. With a sharp, clean click, the metal barrel snaps right out of the wooden stock, and Derek hoists the barrel up, presses it to his eye, and squints through the tube to judge how bad the damage really is. He freezes for a beat, scans the pieces, and maps out down to the last detail exactly how he'll untangle this disaster. Derek freezes and locks his eyes on the barrel, checking every last inch like it might bite back. He spots his tools lined up neatly and lets out a tiny, satisfied smile like he's just won.